All right, I can't, and being on my phone, I can't see who all's on here. Do we have everybody on here?
We have John, Ted,
I'm here, Troy.
Sherry. I saw Stacy, Neil, yourself. So yeah, everybody's on.
All right, all the non-important people, we're all on here.
We are.
Cool. All right, well, we're going to fire this up. So I'm going to call Woodland Hills Metropolitan District regular board meeting for Thursday, October 22nd, 2020 to order. It is 5:33 p.m. Our first item will be roll call. Roy Stinson is present.
Sherry Ring.
Neil Erickson present.
All right.
Stacy Popovich present.
All right. Is John on here?
I'm here. I'm present.
All right. All right. We have all 5 board members are on here, so we do have a quorum. Next item will be President's welcome and remarks, and I want to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you have your little flag thing, Daniel? Somebody want to lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, please? Anybody? John, lead us. Come on, man.
Ready?
Yep.
Aye.
The Pledge of Allegiance
To
To the flag
of the
of the United States of America,
And to the
which
republic,
stands
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
for liberty and for justice.
justice for all. All right. Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. We're going to get into this here pretty quick because it looks like it's a pretty packed agenda for tonight. We also have the budget hearing here later on in the meeting, and we have John, our engineer John McGinn with JDS Hydro, and is Wayne here tonight? Foreman.
Wayne is going to jump on when we get to the presentation, Troy.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So all I'll ask is that, you know, those of you, I can't see how many people are actually on here for the, as far as the budget hearing, but when we'll discuss have the budget hearing on item 10, and we'll keep it in that purview as far as when we get to the agenda item there. So, but welcome everybody. I hope everybody's doing okay out there with the COVID stuff going on, and half the stuff still being shut down, and people, more and more people getting sick. And thanks for taking the time here this evening to jump on here and be involved in what we're trying to do here in Woodland Hills. We really appreciate it. With that being said, we'll move on to item 4, which will be approval of the agenda.
Troy, I had a question on the item number 10, the budget hearing.
Yes.
After the study session that we did last week, I believe we have to do the budget hearing the night that the budget is approved. And being on the budget committee, we are not ready for approval. So I guess I'll reach out to Ted and ask him if we still need to keep item number 10 on the agenda if the budget is not ready.
The process is that the budget committee reports to the board and recommends a budget. Then the board considers it, and it has until December 31st to adopt a budget. So the first step is the budget committee reporting to the board, And there's a notice that the budget committee is going to make that report. Oh, no, it did on October the 15th. I'm sorry. So the status at the moment is that the budget committee makes its report to the board and then the board acts. And if the budget committee hasn't made its submission to the board, then you're correct. It's not ready for board review.
And my opinion on it was the budget committee did send a budget forward. And then we took that budget under consideration, had a study session to review it as a board, and have directed, I think, several changes. And part of making some of those changes is also to have the public hearing so that we can get the public's feedback to add to the board's feedback. And then make adjustments and amendments as needed to the budget before it's ready for final vote and approval by the board. I personally have no intention to vote for the budget as it was proposed. It's still a work in progress, I believe. And although it was presented to the board, I think we're still in the process of doing some revisions to it.
So long as the board budget committee reported something, everything you just said is correct, Troy.
Anybody oppose that? Want to hold a hearing? You're going to run into time constraint if we push it back to December, I think. Because next week is, what is this? Next week is going to turn into November, which is going to add an additional constraint.
I think if we can hear from the community on it as well, if they've got feedback. We've got additional review on this in November that's already scheduled with Jerry and Rachel to cover. So I believe that's already scheduled on the 2nd.
I just feel like the public's opinion and opinion or their feedback tonight in the hearing will also help with some of our deliberations on some of those items.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Stacy and a second by Neil. Any further discussion on the agenda? Okay, with that being said, I'll call a roll for approval of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Agenda is approved. Okay, next item will be item 5, and that'll be the approval or disapproval of the board minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the regular board minutes.
Oh yeah, good catch. I forgot we had 2 sets in there. Okay, I have a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, and a second by John. So I have a motion by Stacy, a second by John. Any further discussion on the regular board meeting? That was the board meeting for September 24th, 2020 for the regular board meeting minutes. Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving the board or the board minutes for the regular board meeting?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Can I get a motion for the study session minutes for October 12th?
I'll make a motion for the study session to approve them.
Second that motion.
Okay, so a motion by Stacy and a second by Neil. Any other? Go ahead.
Neil asked me to look at both minutes, and I had no comment regarding the regular ones. Regarding the study session, I had some minor comments, minor edits, and I don't know if the version you have has minor edits or not. It was very minor.
What were the edits?
First one was to change it from a special session to a study session in the caption
Yes.
at the top. Does it say that now?
Yes.
Okay, and then the others were minor typos, so nothing of any consequence.
Okay.
So to Neil's request, with those changes, I have no objection.
Okay, motion is on the table to approve those minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries approving those minutes from the special session or the study session. All right, item 6 will be comments from Josh Miller from Falcon Highlands Metro District. Josh, are you here?
Yes, I am, Director Stinson, board. Appreciate a couple minutes here. I know you guys have a busy night, but unfortunately not able to obviously meet in person, but met with you guys a little over a year ago as we worked through our operational IGA and the emergency interconnect. That work's obviously been complete, but here tonight to send a message of thanks from our board for a successful year. Specifically, Falcon Highlands went through a sanitary survey with the state this year, and to Raphael's credit, in coordination with many other members of the Woodman Hills staff and JDS, who does engineering on our side of the street as well, the district received 0 marks, 0 suggestions for improvement, which is a first in our history. So hopeful that I had the chance to deliver this in person tonight, but it'll make its way to your offices. It's a simple certificate of appreciation, specifically to Rafael Esparza and Woodman Hills for the continued support and excellence in the water operations with 0 deficiencies or violations in the 2020 sanitary survey. So I wanted to present that to the board and Rafael specifically here tonight for a job well done, and again, send a message of thanks for the partnership that's been established over the years between our 2 districts.
Very good. Very good job.
Gosh,
So I
thanks so
appreciate-
much for those words. I just wanted to mention that it may be a first for Falcon Highlands to have a sanitary survey go that smooth, but I believe that's a first for CDPHE, wasn't it, Raphael? I mean, they have never experienced the sanitary survey where they didn't find fault with something.
Yes, that's what the inspector told me.
So
Great
a
job.
couple of firsts there, and thank you, Rob, for that great job, and thank you, Josh, for those kind words.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, and to the board for the support, and our board sends their gratitude as well.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Raphael, thank you for stepping in there and making that happen. I mean, that takes a lot to run an operation like that. We see what you guys do in our system, and to extend that out to another district and put your expertise out there and put it forefront on behalf of Woodman Hills out there with another district to run their water operations as well. And to give them a clean bill of health like that says a lot, not only for your performance, but also for your character and your just thank you very much for making that happen. Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Just like to add that Raphael is quite a character too, by the way.
Scared me.
To be clear, we've paid all our bills on time, Director Stinson, and I told Jerry I don't expect to see a pay increase next year.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Okay, thank you guys. You guys have a great meeting. Thank you for the time tonight.
You. Did any of the other directors have anything they wanted to add here to Raphael while we have his smiling face here in front of the community?
Good job. Nicely done. Congratulations.
And that just goes to show, Raphael, that you guys are top caliber. Our employees here in our district are top caliber employees. So thank you again. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you for those words, sir.
Okay, we are going to keep rolling here. Item 7, water presentation by John McGinn and Wayne Foreman. I have some popcorn here and some coffee, and I'm going to turn it over to John and Wayne. And the floor is yours, sir.
All right, I'm going to take your screen. Board, it's nice to see you. We have a few new members. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John McGinn. I've been the district engineer for quite a few years now. And what we're going to do tonight is we kind of really wanted to do this in person, but obviously we've been dragging our feet hoping we would get there, but obviously we haven't. So we're going to do it on screen. In addition to myself, I see Wayne's on now. Wayne Foreman is the water attorney. We work closely with him on matters of water rights and source of supply, and he's going to add a few things. He's going to add a few comments as we go. I see, Wayne, is that you on here?
I'm here. Hello,
All right.
everyone. I was I'm going to be on mute for most of this stuff. I'll come in at the end.
All right. Given that, I'm going to see if I can get on here. I'm hitting the share button here, Daniel. Why am I not getting on?
I don't know. Sharing is still enabled, and so you should be able to do it. Although if you can't, we'll go with plan B and I'll display it on my screen.
Yeah, we did this coming in. Why am I? It says my browser is preventing it. But I'm going to, since this isn't working, I'm going to let you put it up, Daniel, and you'll be my page turner.
Very good. You just let me know when you want me to. I'm bringing it up as we speak.
I'm going to go ahead and start talking while Daniel's bringing this up and introducing this. This was a lot of this will be a little old hat for both Sherry and Troy, as they've seen some of this before. However, this is the 2020 version, so there's been a few updates and quite a bit of reporting. What we're going to cover tonight is your source of supply or your water rights. We're not going to get too deep into the facilities, and we certainly encourage questions as we go through. We'd like to be able to answer those, but since we're on a screen like this, why you may also want to hold them to the end, your call. I'll be able to deal with them as we go. So slide, Daniel. All right. All of the Woodman Hills water supply is within the upper Black Squirrel Basin, which is a designated groundwater basin that covers an area of eastern El Paso County. All of Woodman Hills is within the UBS, and all of Woodman Hills supplies are within the UBS. A portion of the supplies are non-renewable, and the non-renewable sources come from what's known as the Denver Basin. It's a deep rock aquifer. It's stretching south of Falcon to all the way to the north side of Denver. Water rights are allocated via property ownership, and it consists of 4 formations. So when we talk about the Denver Basin, we might be talking about any one of 4 formations. The upper formation is the Dawson, second down Denver, third down is the Arapahoe, and the bottom is the Laramie Fox Hills. In your case, the Arapahoe and the Laramie Fox Hills are the 2 primary producers for water that we derive in the Falcon area from the Denver Basin. The Dawson and the Denver have very limited potential in the Falcon area, and we don't use them to a great extent, but there are rights there. Slide, Daniel. Is everybody seeing the top of this too? Is it?
I think it's easier to see if you make it smaller again.
Okay, can you squeeze it down? Very good. Perfect, Daniel. Thank you. I want to mention to you and define, we're going to talk about legal supply tonight versus physical supply. Legal supply is a maximum water right that's granted on any given water source, granted through the state engineer's office in the state. And while you might be given the rights to a certain amount of water, it doesn't guarantee that that water physically exists and that it's easily available or that it's cost effectively accessed. So another term you hear slang in our world, the term paper water. And paper water gives you a right to something that may or may not be there. So the physical supply is the actual water available to the supplier. And we might be accessing a physical supply via diversion structure on a stream, a well into either the Denver aquifer, which we discussed. And we also have wells into alluvial aquifers that are renewable. The delivery might include pumps and pipes. But again, the water may not be there. And if it isn't there, well, the physical supply doesn't exist. Sometimes you hear us refer to the physical water as wet water. I know that that's a bit of a misnomer, but you probably hear that from time to time. Slide, Daniel. So the Woodman Hills sources consist obviously of the non-renewable portion that I've talked about quite a bit. This is water that's finite. In other words, there's a certain amount of it out there. And when it's gone, it's gone. So this is like, I always liken this to drawing from a bathtub. You can draw the bathtub down, and when the water's gone, it's no longer there. It is fully consumable, and what that term means is that if you can reuse the water over and over to what we call extinction. We have obviously local sources in the Falcon area. And so we have wells in the Falcon area, but we also have offsite well fields at Guthrie and Hart. Guthrie and Hart water is approximately 12 miles to the east of the Falcon area, and it is an area that hasn't been mined out as heavily as our local water. In addition to non-renewable, we also have some significant renewable supplies. Renewable supplies are those that are replenished annually. And we have two sources of renewable water right now. Out at the Guthrie site, in addition to the non-tributary, the non-renewable sources, we also have alluvial rights and direct alluvium wells at Guthrie. We also have an offsite contract through Cherokee. It's a perpetual contract, so it lasts forever, and it's based upon an alluvial supply. So that means that it is renewable, and it is a perpetual contract, so it has to be fulfilled every year, whether it's Cherokee or their successor, or I don't care if CSU takes them over, that's your water. And we have roughly 350 acre feet of that per year. Slide. All right, our current water supply. Our current physical supply, we tag right now at about 1,095 acre feet annually. It's only been expanded by about 11% since 2011. There was a project in 2010 that made a leap. And I would mention that we haven't had any leaps in it for 4 years straight. but that a substantial expansion of physical supply is planned for 2022. It's already in the works, and it will be the development of previously unused sources out at Guthrie. What we call them is we call them Area B, and it will add additional water physical supply to our system. The current legal supply, remember this is the paper amount, is on a 100-year basis, and we can get into that later if you guys have some questions about 100-year water versus 300-year water. Your 100-year supply is roughly 3,500 annual acre feet, and your 300-year legal supply is 1,457. I might add, we just added a little bit more, and the number actually has gone up since I printed this about 2 months ago. We actually have a tiny bit more on the legal supply. So as we look at that number, physical supply at 1095 versus the 1457 or 1460 as it is now, the physical supply can never get bigger than the legal supply, but the legal supply can be extended. And I'll show you exactly how this works. So slide, Daniel. So as you look at this graph, you'll see a couple of dashed lines right here. The upper line is your potential legal supply, your paper water. That's you're allowed by the state to take up to those amounts on a 300-year basis. You note that that line bumps up a little bit in various years. You'll see a little expansion in 2014. There are tiny expansions all along. You see another one in 2017, and when you see this next year, you'll see yet another little bump in this as we gain legal supplies. The line below it in purple, the dashed line, is your physical supply. And obviously, you can see it's grown. You can see a small project in 2010, another in 2012, and then a significant one in 2014. It was about 10%. And then you'll see that line going flat from about 15 through 19. In actuality, that line looks flat, but it's not. It actually is bending downward slightly. And the reason for that we'll talk about later on, but it's something that we need to plan for, and it's something that's very important as we look at 50 and 100 years out. You will see that line make a very substantial jump in the year 2022 from it's 1095 as we term it today, and it'll jump to almost 1,200 acre feet in about 2022. Now the two lower lines, the blue line and the red line, are actual water used. We tend to your annual use is the blue line. You'll notice that you had a significant drop in use in between 2012 and 2013. That was a year you guys ended up doing some rate restructuring and some rate equalization, and it resulted in substantial conservation awareness, and you saw that line tip down. It's interesting that you've had significant growth since then, but the year 2012 was still your highest on record, and you haven't got back to that yet. So pretty good example of the conservation that occurred from those rate restructurings in 2012 and 2013. The line's been pretty steady since then. We usually see a little bit more variation than that because from wet to dry year, but it in your case, it's been a pretty flat line. The red line is a statistical line that we tend to track for planning purposes. It's what we call the 3-year RA, the 3-year running average. We use it as a predicting value, but you guys probably want to look at the blue line, see your actual number. I'm going to stop real quick right there and see if anybody, I've already covered a whole lot of ground, and I don't want anybody to not get a chance to ask a question on some of these issues as we go. So anything up to this point that anybody wants to jump in on? Okay, I'll keep going. Daniel, slide. This is a very important graph for us. This graph is what we call a unit user characteristic. And not only do we plot how much water the overall system is using, we also plot what the individual user is using. And in this case, and how we term this is we use the acronym SFE, and what that stands for is a single family equivalent. So each house within the Woodman Hills district represents one SFE, but also what we do is we take the commercial entities, Safeway, Sonic, et cetera, and we convert them to a number of SFEs and use that in our planning. That way we have a useful tool that we can project long-term use and growth and kind of flip the switch back and forth between residential and commercial. So SFE happens to be the acronym we use to kind of put everything on the same plane. At this point, you also see that same drop in user characteristic in that 12-13 ratio when you saw people implementing a lot of conservation due to some of the rate restructuring that you had. I want to mention that the current average user characteristic is 0.287 acre feet. You've probably heard some of this stuff before, but I'm going to repeat it. An acre foot of water is the amount of water 1 foot deep over an entire acre. And it amounts to 325,000 gallons. And it's a measure that we use when we're looking at water annually. We tend to use acre feet. Most everything else, we tend to use gallons. The actual average is 0.287, at least to date. But in our planning, we tend to add 20% to that for reserves, any potential in very, very substantial dry years, and other things that might drive a unique year higher. So as we plan for the future, we look for 0.353 acre feet per SFE that we have, and we require that for all incoming new units. So not only planning for their use, but we're planning on any variations in that use that might be due to dry weather, a lot of irrigation, other factors that might cause a particular annual leap from what typical usage is. Slide, Daniel. All right, this is a really interesting slide, and I think that this one's a good one for you guys to keep in mind. And by the way, I'm sure that we can send this PowerPoint out for everybody that you guys can have later and kind of walk back through some of the things we talked about. There are 4 pieces of the pie right now in terms of what we call your source utilization. So there's 2 that are a variation of blue and 2 that are a variation of red. And right now, the reds represent non-renewable sources of water, and the blue sources represent your renewable sources of water. And there's a very important distinction here, and it's very important for us to watch this ratio as we go through time and as we look out not just 5 years, but out 50 years, 100 years. And it's important that we increase over time the bluer supplies and decrease over time the red supplies. Not that they aren't important and not that they are valuable, but you ultimately want this pie chart to look a little bluer. And by the way, if you look out in the Falcon area, most entities don't have any renewable water whatsoever. So Woodman Hills is in pretty good shape compared to some of your neighbors. And I want you to take it, and the two reds consist of the larger red area is what we pull out of our local wells. So those are the wells that exist in the Falcon area right within your service area. And then the pink ones are the offsites, or the Guthrie wells from which we pull Denver Basin water. The lighter blue represents, we call it Tamlin Renewable here. That also is the Cherokee portion, the 350 acre foot contract that we talked about earlier. And then the larger blue is the Guthrie renewable water that comes from alluvial sources out there. Now, as we go through my presentation, and we might flip back and forth for you, but that brighter red, you're going to see decreasing over time as we kind of look out 5 years and then even out 50 years, or I should say 2050, in watching how that larger red pieces of pie drops down. You will see the pink grow a little bit in the near term, and then you'll see it start dropping back too. So slide, Daniel.
There we are.
You want to be on 15.
15. Okay.
Okay. So our local sources, as I mentioned, the Falcon sources are based on non-renewable water. And I'm sure everybody's read in the paper that it's declining, and it is. It's remember, this is the water that we pull out of the bathtub, not the water we pull out of the stream. So it is declining annually, and it's important that we recognize this water supply is going down, and it's going to go down whether we pump it or not, I should say. Obviously, it'll go down faster if we pump it, but to the extent we do. But the Falcon area Arapahoe Formation is dwindling at a rate that exceeds a 100-year extension, and I'll show you some curves on this later on. So the Arapahoe Formation, which is the one that we use a lot less water, will probably peter out in a 30 to 50 year time frame, especially locally in the Falcon area. At a Guthrie, it's quite a bit different extension because there are not a lot of wells in the Denver Basin in the Guthrie area. The Laramie Fox Hills will decline as well, but it's probably going to be somewhat viable for at least 80 to 120 years. Here's probably, I think, what we want the takeaway to be. But by 2050, we expect the Falcon area Denver Basin water to produce only 2/3 of what it currently does today. That's a pretty big overall decline, and a lot of that decline is going to be in that Arapahoe Formation. So as we look into the future, the Guthrie and the Hart water are going to be further developed. The Guthrie water, we've only developed what we call Area A. The Hart water hasn't even been touched yet. But as we go through time, those sources will be added and added to the mix. You'll see them grow in the near future, and then in the long term, you'll kind of see them dwindle back as we add additional renewable sources. I want to mention that the build out of the current service area, so if you build everything that you're supposed to build plus the anticipated inclusions, you will ultimately need an average of about 1,276 annual acre feet. Keep in mind that early graph that we showed you, that your current legal supply is at roughly 1,460, and your current physical supply is 1,095. So as we go into the future, we have to keep expanding both that physical supply, but also continue to extend our legal supply as well. And if you project this out, it could occur between the years 2040 and 2050. Now, Obviously, that's based upon the anticipated inclusions, but if, even additional reaches of inclusion continue, the build-out factor could probably continue above those numbers that we talked about. I'm going to stop again and try to give everybody a chance. If jump in now if you have some questions. Sometimes you have a question, if you have to wait all the way to the end, you forget what it is. At least I do. So anybody have any questions, thoughts, things they want to add or ask about this before I proceed a little farther?
Yeah, John, I've got a question for you. So the water supply from the 2 replenishing sources, it saw 10%. We can back up to that slide.
Okay. I think that was the.
Okay, yeah, that one there.
Okay.
So Guthrie renewable 10%. So that's a 3-year average? We can actually have it renew at a 10% volume rate?
No. What this means is this is the percentage of water that goes into your system from that source. So right now it provides 10.1% of your water, and it gets renewed every single year. So it's there every year, but it doesn't necessarily increase or decrease. Since it's renewable, you can expect that 89 will be there well into the future. However, as your overall need grows, why that particular source will actually be a lower and lower percentage of what you use overall in your system. Did I answer the question, Neil?
You did. So the Tamlin site's 42% of our water?
It is now, and it, like the Guthrie, will remains a 350 acre feet. So it will be there into the future as 350 acre feet, but it will not increase. So it's not something that we can continue to expand that particular contract. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't go out and get other water and bring it in through the Tamlin system, but it does mean that portion, that Cherokee contract, it is about 42.78 or 43% of what you use today.
So then our local non-renewable, eventually is going to deplete.
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, right now what we're doing is we're looking for renewable sources, and the idea, of course, is eventually to be 100% renewable.
What we've targeted, and we'll get there, I've got some other things that we'll jump ahead as we jump ahead to the year 2050, but you're essentially correct. I don't know if you'll ever want to be 100% renewable. There's some reasons why not. And when we get into discussions about ASR, we'll explain how the non-renewable the non-renewable aquifer might come into play forever in using it in what we call aquifer storage and replacement. But I've got some things that will, we'll discuss that a little bit more as we go on. The big thing is that bright red you're going to see continue to squeeze down, and you'll replace some of it by growing the pink in the near term. But then what you'll see is we'll have to add some other sources to continually shrink the red portions of this.
Okay. So this is not additional water. This is water that we're receiving already.
This is water you're using right now. Now, we can pump more of it. We cannot pump any more. Well, I think we used something like 96% of our renewable water, but we want to use it as effectively as we can. But these 2 sources of renewable, we can't increase. So we will need additional sources of renewable water. Now, they might be delivered through the same mechanism that we're delivering these. The Tamlin renewable comes from the south. It comes from roughly 3 miles to the southeast of Falcon, and then of course the Guthrie is 12 miles to the east. So as the one nice thing about the Guthrie is that pipeline, as that you'll see that pink portion grow a little bit over the near term. And then hopefully, as we're out 10, 20, 30 years, you'll see it start shrinking back. And we'll have some blue sources that potentially replace that capacity in that system.
So then we're currently purchasing that water for Tamlin and Guthrie under an agreement?
No, not the Guthrie you own, the Tamlin water you own as well. It's a contractual right to 350 acre feet. You pay a wheeling charge for it, but the water is yours. It's in your inventory, and it's a perpetual right. I want to quote is it was purchased back in late 90s for about $1 million. And although you pay an annual wheeling charge on it, it is yours forever.
Okay, and that being said, how many other people are actually in the same reserve on both of those water lines?
I didn't quite catch that, Neil. Could you repeat that?
Sure. How many other places are tapped into the same water on Tamlin and Guthrie?
The Guthrie is a system that is, this shows your portion of it. So you own roughly half of the Guthrie source. The other half is owned by Meridian Metro District to your north. So that project is shared between those two entities. And what's shown here is strictly the portion that you own. In the case of the Tamlin, you are the only individual that uses the Tamlin system right now, and you are the only person that owns that 350 acre feet. The Tamlin pipeline system is also jointly owned by Meridian, but they don't have any access to a renewable source to it, so you're the only one using it right now. It has the capacity to deliver their half if and when they get a renewable portion, but right now they don't have anything to put in the pipe.
And so that said, Jerry, we have the water distribution system to actually pipe that back up. So that may be something in the future that possibly we would supply to Meridian through our piping system.
Well, we have supplied Meridian with water from Cherokee through the Tamlin line. Cherokee owns 50% of it. And we have charged them a wheeling charge to get that water through our system into their system.
Okay, I understand it now. Thank you.
Did we catch everything, Neil?
Yeah, I think I've got a better understanding. Just trying to grasp where the water's coming from, because I think, we're looking at some other opportunities for additional sites and locations out of Guthrie as well, right? In the future.
Well, we're going to be adding additional diversions and wells. The Guthrie area is kind of broken into a set of groups. We call it Area A, Area B, and Area C. Area C, hopefully, we're going to actually build into some of the other areas. And Wayne is going to jump in here at the end and talk a little bit about what we're doing out there right now. But you're correct that we're going to add actual diversion to the Guthrie supply, and that will increase that pink slice of the pie right here. And it'll be some of your short-term supply. When I say short, guys, my world in short is like 50 years. So because as I look at water and as I look at water rights and water sources, I think in the world of 50, 100 and beyond years. So because water is literally forever. Pumps and pipes and wells go away and they have to be replaced. But the water source and the water right, we intend that it's there for the next 1,000 years or whatever it takes to support the community. So I just wanted to add that the short in my world may not be short in everybody else's.
No, I just wanted to make sure it was kind of brought to point on this meeting, because I know that we are looking at some additional opportunities inside the budget that include the Guthrie subject. So,
That's correct. And as a matter of fact, I mean, that the next project at Guthrie is the one that I referred to that will bring on additional physical supplies in the year 2022.
Okay. I just want to make sure because it is a budget consideration is what we're looking at on that particular topic. So thank you.
It is, and we'll come back around to that. And I'm pretty sure Jerry has some stuff. All right. Where was I?
John,
Daniel,
we did skip 9 through 14.
I did? Well, you're absolutely right. I am wrong. Can you jump back to 9?
Sure.
Or I think I did. All right, here's a few facts. There are 11 wells in the Falcon area that you draw from. 5 are Arapahoe, 5 are Laramie Fox Hills. There's 1 Dawson, Denver. We are probably not going to drill any more wells in the Falcon area. If we do, it'll be for almost a different reason than additional sources, because the Falcon area water, we're kind of at. I mean, we can pump them harder, but we don't plan to. We plan that other areas are going to be our source. The Arapahoe Formation, as I mentioned, is the higher source. You derive about 3 times as much water from Laramie Fox Hills as you do the Arapahoe. But the Arapahoe is the formation that is in declination at a greater rate than a 100-year rate. The LFH is in moderate declination as well, but it's in a slightly less declination rate than the 100-year. As I mentioned, we don't foresee extending additional wells in the Falcon area unless we're doing them to support aquifer storage and recharge and an ASR project that may be happening, in the next 10 to 20 years. So bottom line is we want to continue to reduce our reliance on the Arapahoe in the Falcon area, and we'll maintain the LFH draws at close to current withdrawals for the near term. Okay, slide. I actually threw on here what we call a declination curve. This curve is not for a specific well, so you can't take the exact numbers and apply them to any given well. But this is about an average of how our Arapahoe wells are doing in the Falcon area, and you can kind of look over to the left and look up and see that we're about 15 to 20 years out. We've been pumping these for about almost 20 years now. Good data since 2010. So this graph starts in 2010 and it runs out all the way to 2100. So again, remember that what I call short is it is a fairly long period. You can see that the declination curve is suggesting that these wells could be producing only 50% of what they're producing in 2010 by the year 2046. And that's a pretty rapid decline. And as we plan for more water and we replace this water with renewable sources, we look at these declination curves as we bring new things in and expand our legal supply as well. The next curve is the LFH curve, the Laramie Fox Hills curve. And you will see it's a little flatter. And you can kind of see where we are now. But 50% yield, we're projecting at 2068. So it's got a bit longer life. But as you can see, I mean, these wells just will peter out over time. They don't really get down to zero because as you get out to a 25% yield, some of these things cease to be cost effective to produce water out of them. And for that reason, when you hit these lower yields of 50 to 25%, you'll see us probably starting to, not rest or abandon some of these wells. There's no doubt that future technology. We might be fracking water wells someday. I don't know that. We don't. It's very cutting edge technology. I don't know that we would do that in the Falcon area, but we make the gross assumption here that that won't really be the case. Slide. All right, there's a couple of, obviously you have a lot of renewable sources, but you also have a few other things going for you. You have a few other water rights and a few other debits that happen. As I mentioned, the Denver Basin water is fully consumable. And I think, Neil, you suggested 100% replacement. I said, well, you'll probably never get out to 100%. And the reason is that we'll be wanting to pump these at fairly low rates for a long time in the future. Right now, you have the rights to reuse what we call return flows. So what comes out of the wastewater plant, there is roughly in the future 400 to 500 annual acre feet that can be treated and made available for reuse, or even go into an ASR project, even be pumped back down into those areas, be treated further, obviously, and pumped back down into those aquifers. I always say that the bad news is that we're emptying the Arapahoe aquifer. The good news is that we're emptying the Arapahoe aquifer. And when I say that, what my intention is the fact that as we create space there, we create space that we can bring in additional supplies and actually pump water back down that hole and then use that seasonally. And the Arapahoe aquifer now becomes a giant storage vessel for us to manipulate water rights. Right now, a lot of this water is being used for beneficial uses, not the highest and greatest use, but some of it is being sold to the golf course for irrigation. So as I mentioned, our future, these return flows, we do not show them on the legal right. We don't show them on the physical, but they're going to become major sources of supply in the future in one form or another. There's a replacement plan, and that we have to deal with. It's secondary. It has to do with exposure of under drain water and certain depletions. And right now I'm just going to say, and I leave this a little bit for Wayne because this is a bit his area. But in past years, our deficits have been running in the 25 to 50 annual acre feet. But staff has been performing a great deal of under drain, drainage area, wetland area management, and we get LRF credits that Wayne will explain later. But in the last several years, the Woodman Hills staff has slowly regained neutral equivalency such that in 2020, our balance for replacement, we got it to zero. So that's pretty big news in so much as it ends up no longer being a drain on some of your legal supply. Like I said, I'm going to defer a little bit of this to Wayne at the end, as the replacements plan has been a bit of his baby as well, to get into in a little bit further depth. So slide. I probably kind of hit a lot of this already, so I'm going to, our offsite sources, obviously we have a straw to the east to the Guthrie Hart area, and we're going to be expanding the use of that in the near term. The Cherokee source is to the south, and there's no opportunity to expand the water, but use of the pipeline, we might be able to extend a little bit further. Last but not least, the Guthrie alluvial is fully developed and is renewable, and it's brought into the Guthrie system. And obviously we'll be able to use that, into for hundreds of years to come. So next. All right, this is 2025. So I mentioned to you that what we want to see is the bright red decrease over time. And one of the first things that you would see is expansion of the pink area to fill up that gap. We want to decrease our use on the local Denver Basin area and increase our use of the Guthrie Denver Basin in the near term. And that's kind of what this slide represents. And you kind of see the pink area kind of expanding and reducing our reliance on our local supplies. Neil asked about the percentages, use that we were looking at on the other slide. Note that the reliance on the Arapahoe Formation will decrease in our local Arapahoe water will go all the way down to less than 4% of our supply by roughly 5 or 6 years from now. That's a pretty big deal. And you can see how we've planned for the declination of this the local Arapahoe sources. We've planned to be able to backfill that with other supplies as we go into the future. So, Neil had some very good questions, and I think that his questions kind of lead you into this graph in terms of some of those answers as to how our near-term supplies, are backfilled and how we work that Arapahoe reliance down to a very low number. And you can see 5 years from now, that Arapahoe is going to be a pretty darn small part of what we rely on to feed Woodman Hills. Okay, slide. I think it's 15, or have we already been there? Daniel, jump out. Okay, this is the one that I failed and jumped forward to. So this slide and some of the things I said maybe make a little bit more sense now that I was able to backfill those. So let's go ahead and jump ahead to 16. All right, how do we get additional supplies and where might they come from? So right now, our focus is on renewable. It doesn't mean we're not going to take some additional non-renewable, but for the short term. But our focus is really on looking for more renewable supplies. There are more rights, alluvial rights, out in the upper Black Squirrel that can be purchased from agriculture. And the Guthrie pipeline system, as you see going into the future, and we start shrinking the pink, gets uptaken by potentially some purchases out east, and we have the supply system to do that. As we look southerly, we might bring southerly sources up north through an eastern El Paso County loop that might come from the south. And in the last couple of years, and this is probably an area that for Sherry and Troy, they're seeing some difference in what our reports are. CSU, Colorado Springs Utilities, has a fairly substantial changing attitude about regionalization. And they have now opened themselves up and to partnering opportunities with surrounding water suppliers to participate and make use of their Southern Delivery System, or the SDS. And what this does is make acquisitions in the Fountain Creek system, in the Arkansas system, of renewable supplies of potential opportunities for Woodman Hills and others, with the intent that the CSU system could be used for delivery. Staff has spent a lot of time lately participating in those regionalization meetings with CSU. CSU is a very large organization. So even though they claim that, we're going to have this all put together in a year, that usually means 2 to 3 years. But nevertheless, they have taken that big step in the last few years that no, they're not going to close the barn door behind them. They are now looking for opportunities to partner with other entities to put supplies into and take them out of their SDS system. And like I said, what that does is opens opportunities for Woodman Hills and others to get into the market in the Fountain system, the Arkansas system, because all of those are supplies that can actually be put into and delivered through the SDS. Another potential, obviously, is the aquifer recharge and storage system. And the Arapahoe, although it is dropping its level dramatically in Falcon, that is creating a huge storage volume that can be used to manipulate supplies such that you could meet seasonal summer demands using a flatter curve and delivery curve from the winter. What this makes up, these opportunities are going to become available as we bring additional supplies in. It might also be connected to indirect reuse or direct reuse, and which would be the exploitation of those return flows that we talked about earlier, that you have all the future potential rights to. And the geometry and layout of the Woodman Hills system kind of lends itself to substantial reuse and expansion of those supplies. And it also sets you up that long-term needs might be met through those types of direct reuse systems. All of those are opportunities. And of course, for what Jerry and I always say, for every 3 opportunities, we actually make one of them actually work as you work through these. I think I heard a question coming. So is there any questions right now? Anybody? Maybe it was just feedback. Okay. Slide, Daniel. All right, here we go, that magical 2050 year that I was talking about. Now you look at even further shrinking of the red areas, the pink, and now the pink is actually starting to shrink back down again. And you'll see a couple of other areas that I've introduced, which are in purple. They would be 2 additional sources that, and there's a little bit of meat to these 2 sources that might be introduced or acquired in that short term, in that period between about 2025 and 2050. And going back to Neil's comment, you can see that light blue Cherokee contract remaining 350 acre feet, but now it's a smaller portion of your demand. Whereas the actual local Denver Basin, the red, is continuing to shrink, and it is now down to the LFH actually backing off down to 12% of your supply. And now you also start to see the Guthrie Denver Basin being dialed back a little bit as well by the year 2050 and being replaced with these future purple sources. And of course, in the previous slide, we just discussed some of the possibilities from where those purple sources might be backfilled. So slide. Obstacles in financing, it all takes money, right? But as you go forward, new water sources that require money, as well as permitting, in some cases, willing partners. You certainly have Meridian. You're a bit attached to them at the hip on 2 of your straws, your eastern straw and your southern straw, but your new western straw now is solely Woodman Hills. So any opportunities that are going to come out of the new western straw are solely yours. We mentioned the near-term physical supply expansions at Guthrie. That's going to be probably some of your future over the next 5 to 15 years. And Neil, you were kind of asking about the money and the budget. And so it's likely that we'll spend $3 million over the next 5 years or so developing those near-term supplies. Those TAP expansions are going to be through inclusions. TAP expansion through the inclusion is what really helps fund, those future needs. and I'm going to come back around to that and mention what was enacted by the previous board is a longer term water policy that created a mechanism that we call water acquisition fees that are levied against developers when they come in and build in the district, whether that is building in existing areas as well as in building in inclusion areas. And that was completed in roughly 2018 by the prior board. And you kind of wish you could show these guys, here's what, the decisions that you made, here's the result of that while you're still a board member. Unfortunately, water projects take years and years and sometimes even decades. But at least somebody in the future is going to appreciate, what was done by the 2018 board. And the overall benefit to the community as we advance ourselves from now to the year 2050, is that we're going to advance renewable source utilization from roughly 50% today to roughly 70% renewable water over that 2050 period. And that kind of starts to answer, I think, some of the questions that you had, Neil, about where we're going. And then obviously that number, that 70%, is going to continue to grow through, the second half of this century. Again, remember, guys, what I talk about is short is boards don't get to see the good things that they do. It tends to be, a decade or two that they're being thanked for, the foresight that they had previously. So you wish that Troy and Sherry could see the results of this, but it'll probably be even after me because I'm getting old. But guys, we're going to be, implementing these things as we go down the road past 2025. Slide. Okay, bottom line, where do you guys stand today? We rate the Woodman Hills water supply as good, not great, but good. The primary deficiency is the reliance on Denver Basin supplies, which ultimately require, additional supplementation and replacement over time. Portions of the Denver Basin water may have a relatively short life. As I mentioned, the Arapahoe Formation in the Falcon area itself, its effective life is probably in the 30 to 50 years. But you saw in those pie graphs how we were reducing the reliance on that over time of that Arapahoe, and you saw that those numbers dropping. Some of the other elements that you have, both the LFH in the Woodman Hills area, but also the Guthrie, are likely to be productive, for another 100 years or so. But portions of it dwindling and dwindling relatively rapidly. One of the big positives for Woodman Hills, the geometry of the system. Sometimes you get lucky, and Woodman Hills just happens to be laid out right, and the wells in the right place to allow for future options. And once again, you'll see that word ASR come up in the future for aquifer storage. And when I say we're not going to drill any more Arapahoe wells in the Falcon area for the purposes of withdrawing water, we might be drilling another Arapahoe, somewhere down the road, but actually use it more for an ASR project than actually withdrawal. Bottom line, by effectively managing your development, the development of your community, alternate supplies, using those development resources are the thing that's going to provide for the future. So as we go forward, I think that the bottom line that you might hear out of this is that growth pays for itself. And in this particular case, growth will be a mechanism that allows you to, move the system forward and slowly, kind of supplement and replace those Denver Basin supplies as we go through time. With that, I'm going to kind of jump off a bit and let Wayne talk for a bit on the next slide. But before we go there, I know we've thrown a lot of stuff in your lap tonight. I wish we were there in person because it makes it a lot easier to get some of this across and allow you guys to ask better questions. But obviously, we're always available to come back and kind of recover some of this stuff or get down more in the weeds on some of the details of it. But does anybody have any questions right now that they might throw at me?
What's going to be required for us to use some of our effluent for aquifer storage?
One of the things that's going to happen, that was a really good question, Jerry. And I think you're asking me because you already know the answer to this, but I think you were asking on behalf of the board. So one of the things that's in our future on the wastewater side of things is we are going to be looking at increased regulations on the wastewater side in the fairly near term, in the 5-year plus maybe ratio range, that are going to require increases in treatment quality out of the wastewater plant. Some of those are previously anticipated in the last expansion or improvements that were done in 2018 that were actually designed in 2015 anticipated this. And some of the things were built into the existing plant or set up to accommodate that. But what those requirements of increased water quality coming out of that wastewater plant are going to open doors for you to take it just a bit further and create and utilize that those return flows in ASR and manipulate those into effective water supply. So I'm pretty sure that that's why Jerry was asking that question, to add that note to the comments here, that some of the things that we anticipate happening in the 5 to 10 year ratio or range on the wastewater side are going to actually open some doors for you on the water side. And we've done certain things to accommodate the future when that gets here, as we looked at those wastewater alternatives. But this Arapahoe volume and the vacated Arapahoe space is going to allow for the potential for that ASR. So that's a great question, Jerry. Anything else, guys? I know we gave you a lot, so even if the questions don't come into your head right away, we're always available to come back, kind of redo this. Hopefully someday when we all can get in the same room face to face and answer these questions a little better. But with that, Daniel, if you'd flip the slide, and I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and let Wayne jump in and take over from this point.
Well, John, before Wayne jumps in, in case I don't get a chance before the end of this, I just want to thank you for making this time available and making this presentation to the board. This was excellent material.
Well, you guys know I love this stuff, and Troy knows you have to keep me, from I could talk about this all night because I love it, but I got to try to manage my time a little bit because your time is valuable as well. So thanks, Jerry, and guys, I am there to the extent you need me, and come back and drill down a little deeper on this. So thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
All right, Wayne, you take over.
Thanks. That was excellent, John. Thanks a lot. So this is Wayne Foreman. I've been water counsel for the district for about 5 years. And I just have, you'll be happy this, I have one slide. And I just wanted to go over a couple of the recent and current legal activities that we're involved in related to your water supply. So John mentioned that we have an ongoing replacement plan that was approved by the Colorado Groundwater Commission. Back in the early 2000s, the state water officials took the position at the urging of the Upper Black Squirrel Creek District that the underdrains that underlie your development that were installed to reduce groundwater levels so foundations could be built, that those are actually water wells, and that the water that is discharged through those underdrains to the surface streams had to be replaced. Any depletions that occurred from evaporation or uptake by plants had to be replaced. Now, there are underdrains throughout Colorado. This was really the first time that the state took the position that these underdrains were actually groundwater wells and that their impacts had to be offset by additional water. So we were involved in a pretty contentious case before the Groundwater Commission, actually a hearing officer, but we got it approved. Ultimately, the objectors in the case signed off, as did the state. And we've got a pretty extensive set of protocols that we need to follow to calculate how much water from the underdrains is actually depleted each year as a result of being discharged into the surface streams, and how much water there is to replace it. The primary source of replacement water is called what we call LIRFs, which are lawn irrigation return flows. So our water resource consultants, Wheeler and Associates, calculates regularly how much water returns to the groundwater as a result of people watering their lawns with this non-renewable, fully consumable groundwater that John was talking about. So you actually have formulas and measurements to assess how much of that water gets back into the alluvium. And we can take credit for that because it's fully consumable groundwater. And so what we need to do is, on a 5-year rolling average, we need to balance the depletions and the accretions to the groundwater system. As John mentioned, through on-site work, a lot of the depletions that are occurring to the underdrain flows have been reduced, and we are continuously looking for other ways to reduce the underdrain flow in order to reduce the burden and expense of complying with the replacement plan. But the good news is that up till now, the return flows have exceeded our depletions, and we're in balance, and we're not at risk of any enforcement actions, which the state had threatened us with before we had a replacement plan. So that's an ongoing effort that we're continuing with. Recently, the Groundwater Commission, which is the state agency that governs groundwater within the designated basins. There's a state agency, that's the Groundwater Commission, and then each of the designated basins has their own management district. So it's really a heavily regulated resource. But the Groundwater Commission recently adopted rules, and we participated in that rulemaking process to govern replacement plans and these new ASR plans, which are not very widespread, aquifer storage and recovery. The principal focus of the rules was on water quality, because both of these plans include the injection of water into the aquifer as an offset for either pulling water out elsewhere or pulling the same water out in the same vicinity and using the evacuated space in the aquifers as basically a reservoir. But the concern from a lot of folks was that any injected water needed to be of a quality that would not disrupt the quality of the water that the existing water users were used to enjoying and using. So the focus on water quality is going to become more heightened in connection with any future replacement plans or any ASR plans that are proposed in this basin and any other designated basin. And that's just something we're going to need to deal with. The concern for us is if there's particular scrutiny on these lawn irrigation return flows and whether we're going to have to implement some more detailed and exotic measuring system, monitoring and measuring by putting in additional wells in order to capture and measure groundwater contaminants. It gets very expensive and cumbersome, and we're hopeful it doesn't get to that point. But I fear that for any new proposals, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny. We're also involved in a rulemaking process by our local groundwater management district, the Upper Black Squirrel Management District. They are proposing also a set of water quality rules that really govern the same issues that the Groundwater Commission rulemaking covered. And we think the reason they're doing that is because they want to be the ultimate decision maker as opposed to the state agency. So we are crafting a letter objecting to their rules. They really set up a completely duplicative permitting process. So you go through the process of getting a replacement plan or an ASR plan approved through the Groundwater Commission. That in and of itself is an expensive and protracted proceeding. And what the UBS district is saying is then you got to come to us and go through our process. Not only is that onerous and expensive, but we can make a different decision than the Groundwater Commission. So we don't think that's lawful. We don't think it's right. We don't think it's necessary. And we think it's important that we object to those rules. Not the last, but the last water rights issue that I'll talk about this evening is we have a water rights permitting application, a couple applications to address an error that is existing in our Guthrie Denver Basin water rights. There was a misdescription of a piece of property, so we need to get that fixed. So we just recently filed applications to do that. And we recently improved our Guthrie permits by adding replacement as an allowable use of the Guthrie alluvial water. What that does, it allows us to take credit for the lawn irrigation return flows that originate from the Guthrie alluvial wells. So that adds to the source of supply that we can use under our replacement plan. And perhaps one day, if our replacement plan shrinks or goes away because we've eliminated the consumption of the under drain water, we might be able to use that water for other purposes. So we've got a lot going on, but it's all for the betterment of the district. And appreciate your time tonight, and I can answer any questions if you have any. We're getting an Amber Alert in.
I have two questions, Wayne.
Hi, Ed, sure.
Does the district have any storage rights, A? And B, does it have any water source other than wells?
The district does not have any storage rights per se. I mean, groundwater wells in and of themselves have a storage component because when you're not using the groundwater, it's there, it's in the ground. So, but no, there's no storage right, so to speak. And all of the potable water that the district has rights to comes from wells, either our wells or Cherokee's wells. I mean, through the Tamlin water. There's one surface water right that the district has, which is valuable because it specifically says that water can be taken from the surface stream within the district, and the water that is encompassed within that water right includes native water that's just in the stream due to precipitation and inflows, but also it allows for water that is discharged from the wastewater treatment plant. So that water right allows for reuse of that water currently for irrigation of the golf course. But in terms of potable water, it's all groundwater, it's all well water.
What stream?
I think it's a tributary of Upper Black Squirrel. John, do you know?
Yeah, it is a tributary, but it's basically a sand stream. It doesn't flow water other than what we put in it. There are no live streams anywhere in the area of Woodman Hills.
Thank you.
Our permit calls it an unnamed tributary to the Black Squirrel, and it is an ephemeral stream. Upper Black is really an ephemeral stream.
Anything else, Wayne?
So what are the most important legal things that we need to get done right away within the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, I think we're doing them. I mean, I think all of these issues are. I mean, I won't say they're pressing, but they're present and need to have some attention paid. The other things we need to do is as we're managing inclusions and processing inclusions is to make sure that all the groundwater underlying other properties is transferred and that water acquisition fees are paid. But this is I think this is enough for the time being. But and to the extent that there are other resources that we want to explore, I'm available to help with that. But I think John and Jerry have a really good handle on that aspect of what we need to do.
This is John. There's ongoing activities always that we're involved in, and one of the cases we started talking about are a bunch of small sources, small determinations, and we're probably, once you guys get through some of these very small inclusions you're doing, we're probably going to package those in the next year, probably in the 2021 timeframe, and process a case that brings more legal water to the inventory. And those will be proceeding after these inclusions. There's water under the inclusions that's never been determined that will be deeded via the inclusions, and we'll pick up those determinations. Those are just some of the active legal elements, as well as the legal elements that are going on at Guthrie. And, as we've come up with a few water sources that we've considered, Wayne, Jerry, and I kind of all work hand in hand on all of these things. It takes all three components, the management, operation, engineering, and legal, to make them all happen. So it's not like each of the three of us are doing something separately. We're tend to doing all of them together. So you probably will see a 2021 case. It's going to include some additional quantifications and determinations to push that legal line a little bit farther in coming up in the next year.
Any other questions for Wayne or John?
Doesn't sound like it. Well, Wayne, thanks a lot for participating in our meeting tonight and giving us a heads up on the legal aspects of our water. Thanks so much.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks very much.
Wayne, John, thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it.
All righty. I'm going to sign off now. Good night.
Good night.
Guys, it was nice meeting everybody. I'll probably sign off too, unless Troy or Jerry tells me to stay on. But keep in mind that as you guys look at this stuff and have questions, you always have access to myself and Wayne to drill down a little deeper, because I can tell you right now that we gave you a very, very high level cursory overview. This stuff goes pretty deep down the rabbit hole.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll move to item 8, which is the attorney's report.
Okay. You got it, Troy?
Yep, you're on.
Over the last month, we have redone the resolutions, which were attached to your packet, a supplement. Jerry took me on a great tour of the whole system. We spent many hours a week or so ago going through the both sewer and water systems. And the highlight of the tour to me was to see that new water tank that's under construction. I was just fascinated by it. One of the issues in the prior resolution was a discussion about easements. Rachel has confirmed that there are no easements involved in the pending resolution inclusions. We did some research regarding what constitutes or what can be the basis for an executive session. I worked with Jed regarding casino nights. How might that proceed? And he went forward and got the information from the state. And then from looking at the budget figures regarding attorney's fees and follow-up I had with Rachel, I clarified that those fees are not all our firm. They're however many other attorneys there are involved. Those were their firms, their fees as well. And that's all.
Okay. Any questions for Ted while we? Okay. We'll move on to item number 9. That's approval or disapproval of the financials.
Rachel, I just had one question on the financials. Is it through the end of September? So these months, so these financials are based on the 9 months?
I think Rachel's microphone is not operational. She is at home doing this, so.
So Jerry, do you know if the financials we're looking at are through month end for September?
My understanding is the year-to-date takes you to within a week, I believe, of the board meeting. I would defer to Rachel, but you can get that answer from us tomorrow or whenever.
The balance sheet's reflecting September 30th of 20.
Yeah.
So Rachel said the September column is actually September.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Troy,
Yes.
something I forgot. Through the course of the evening, there's that resolution.
We're past you already.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
All right. There's that resolution which should be adopted tonight at some point during the course of the evening.
Okay, the bar holdings.
Yes.
Okay.
I move to approve the financials as written.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Neil to approve the financials as written and a second by Stacy. Any further discussion on financials, September or through September? Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving the financials?
Aye.
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 Man, aye. Motion carries 5. Okay. Next up is going to be item 10. This will be the portion of the budget hearing that was scheduled for tonight and posted. It's been up for, I believe, well over 30 days. So the budget was presented at the last meeting or just prior to the last meeting to the board of directors. We've taken the budget that was presented out of committee to the board and looked at it. We've also taken and had a study session. That study session took place on September 24th via Zoom and was very lengthy, and we made it through a third and adopted many, I believe, a lot of the philosophy and changes from that 1/3 look into the full budget, and sent the budget back to committee, at least our version, for some revisions, tweaks, and things to look at not only the as far as rate increases, but also non-rate increases, and what areas we could further save the district money going forward, with this being a COVID year and just the massive amounts of things going on right now that's affecting everybody economically. With that being said, we left this budget out there for public comment because we need the public's input in it as well. So we'll open this up now, board members or public folks, if you'd like to speak on as far as the budget, please identify yourself and tell us what you'd like us to look at or to know.
This is Robert. Can I go ahead and comment?
You can.
Okay, I'm Robert. I'm the district manager for Paintbrush Hills. And we received notification from Jerry on the 14th of October for a possible rate increase based on your budget. And according to our ICA, we should receive that prior to October 1st. Because we did not receive it in time, I'll let you know that our district will resist any rate increases you impose on any of our residents. You mentioned that the budget was posted well over 30 days. Well, that's incorrect. According to your blog, it was posted on September 29th, which we are about a week short of that. Also, on your budget, there's some concerns. I would say a few concerns. And just to highlight one of those concerns is on the sewer section. Of course, that affects my residents. You have on here for next year budgeted for $40,000 for locates. Locates are normally done when you receive a locate, regardless if it's water, sewer, electrical, whatever. And as of January 1st, we're all going to be required to do tier 1 locates. What you're saying here at $40,000 is you're going to do, I believe my math was 21 locates per year per household, which is just unreasonable. So with that, and you had in your water budget another $40,000 for locates. So that's $80,000 for locates. Each locate costs you $1.49 with the 811 system. And there's, like I said, there's other things on here, but the highlights that I wanted to bring up was Paintbrush Hills will resist any increase on any of our residents based on the ICA. And based on your budget, the numbers just don't seem to be realistic. And just highlighting one was the locates. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Did you want to speak to that, Jerry, or are we going to answer them? What day was the budget posted as far as the hearing goes? First of all,
Daniel might be able to answer that more accurately than I.
Dan, are you on there?
I am. I'm reviewing some records. I do think that it was announced at the last board meeting that the budget would be available for inspection at the district office immediately, and was.
It was, and we did announce that the budget meeting would be at this month's meeting, which is 1 month after the fact. But did we post it? We normally post all this stuff in the Rangeland News, I believe, is where we normally post our stuff. It's considered a local paper.
So, yeah, I can't speak to what was posted in the Ranchland News. It was posted on the website. I'm looking to figure out what date it was posted on the website, but the statute doesn't require the posting of the budget on any website. I'm sure it merely requires that it be available for inspection. Perhaps Ted could speak to that.
We spoke to that, and Ted, go ahead. 32, I believe it's 101. Has
32-1001, subsection 4 says that public meeting held at least 30 days after providing notice stating the action is being considered and stating the date, time, and place of the meeting at which the action is being considered.
Okay.
And doesn't section 2 also say that it has to be posted, and there's 5 or 6 different opportunities to post that? And the earliest you posted it was September 29th. And that's according to your blogs, the information right on your website.
What are the other options given for when it could be posted?
Subsection 3 provides posting the information on the official website of the special district if there is a link to the district's website on the official website of the division. Then there are other options. There is including the notice as a prominent part of a newsletter, annual report, billing insert, billing statement, letter, or other notice of action, or other informational mailing sent by the special district to the customers of the district. So there's a variety of them all through that section, with the website being one of them.
Is there something that's about what's required as far as posting goes if there's a rate increase, or only if there's a rate increase?
No, it says the governing body of any special district furnishing domestic water or sanitary services directly to residents and property owners within or outside the district may fix or increase fees, rates, tolls, penalties, or other charges only after consideration of the action at a public, as I just read before, consideration of the action at a public meeting held at least 30 days after providing notice stating that the action is being considered. So Robert, I'm reading from the statute, but if you've got something else that you'd like to share, I would welcome that.
Well, and yeah, I'm muted. And same thing that I'm just going off statute or subsection 2 of the same statute where it says posting. And I'm not the lawyer. I'm, like I said, I'm just looking at the information. And if you guys posted it, I don't think mentioning it at a previous meeting counts. But if it was posted, the only information that I have found is September 29th, your guys' blog saying that you're going to consider adopting the budget with a 2.5 rate increase.
I'm reading from section 2 as well.
Okay, so we're on the same page. I think just the debate is when was it actually posted, and really the bottom line for us for Paintbrush Hills is we have a legal agreement saying that we will be notified prior to October 1st for any consideration. The letter I received on October 14th from Jerry was even dated October 8th. And Jerry said in the letter and other emails saying, yes, he knew he was late. With that in mind, I just want to put it on public record that Paintbrush Hills will resist any increases to any of our residents because our agreement was not met.
I can't comment on Jerry's letter, but there obviously, if it's incorrect, and it does not appear to be incorrect, appears to, said the other way, appears to be correct, it can be remedied immediately.
Okay.
I would just say that, yeah, I did miss October 1st deadline, but the board hasn't even decided on a rate increase as of yet. So I don't know how I can notify anyone of a rate increase that hasn't been approved by the board of directors.
And the contract doesn't say you have to inform us of a rate increase. You have to inform us of a possible or a consideration of a rate increase.
The statute says the district may fix or increase. So it's in both scenarios.
Okay, paragraph 14 of the agreement with Woodman Hills and Paintbrush Hills says monthly user rates. And going down to the second or third last paragraph, it says Woodman Hills shall provide an itemized description of the basis for any adjustment to in-district wastewater service rates to Paintbrush Hills Board of Directors prior to the first billing to customers and annually by October 1st for budget purposes, therefore.
What paragraph is that?
14. 14.
And Robert, obviously I don't have the benefit of the IGA in front of me.
Well,
I have it here, Ted.
and like I said, I'll you know, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I just want to put it on record that we'll resist. We haven't totally said we're not going to accept the rate increase. There's a couple key things that has to happen. One is, like I said, an itemized description of what our rate includes. And according to the budget, there's several things on here that we are looking into to see if that should we even be paying for that, such as your election cost. This coming year is not an election year for you guys, but you're putting $17,500 in election costs under the sewer rate, and another $17,000 and $17,500 in the water rate, and another. Wait a minute, let me get it.
I believe we've addressed several of those particular items that you're mentioning through our study session here. So I would just ask for you to be somewhat tolerant of us to work through.
Sure.
And work on the budget a little bit more. I'm still trying to, can you tell me what page that's on, first of all?
Page 5.
Robert, I know that during our study session, we did go over election costs being in there for the 3 enterprises during an off election year. So we have discussed that. We discussed it last week. And then we actually do, I have it on my end. I have it notated for the, well, let me get to that part in the budget. I have it notated for the locating fee.
Yes.
Because last year we budgeted 2,200 and this coming year we're budgeting 40,000. So I do have it notated on mine for when the budget committee meets again.
Okay, excellent. And just keep in mind, we would question that would be part of Paintbrush Hills budget. We do our own locates, and of course we pass the appropriate fees and charges, whatever we need, you know, because I understand that's part of the expense of the district, especially come January 1st. We all have to be tier 1 locators. We understand that, but we don't understand why Paintbrush Hills should bear any burden of the locates for Woodman Woodman Hills.
Robert, could you notate that in an email of things that you've looked at? Because I'm sure that we've already gone through on the committee, looked over a lot of those same items. But that way we can be on the same page. Because there are other things that, you know, Jerry and Rachel have done on the budget that do constitute those fees, but not necessarily bracketed in the same category, you know, per se. But we have to understand the guidelines for it.
I would like to say that the locates is part of the collection system. Paintbrush Hills does not get charged for our fees for collection, only for treatment.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
About the locates, Robert said that they would be required coming this next year. Do you know how many are required per household per year?
Okay, so let's get off locates. This, like I said, that's part of the collection system, not part of treatment. Paintbrush Hills is not paid for collection. The other thing is that we are obligated, we have been obligated for many years to do locates. And it's a function that we provide per regulation. The reason that we've changed our locate line item is because we are contracting a locating service, a locating contractor, instead of doing it in-house. Like I said, our locates do not affect Paintbrush Hills. Paintbrush Hills only pays for treatment.
So there's no answer to that question. How many are required?
Hey, Kelly, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to answer that, but anytime you call 811, that triggers off a locate. So if you never call 811, it won't affect you. And as a resident, you don't necessarily pay other than it's part of our budget for Paintbrush Hills and Woodman Hills. It's just part of our budget. It's just you know, the cost of our doing our business. So there's no requirement per household. It's just how many times do you need to call in to locate if you're digging or something like that.
Okay, I was just confused because you had said it was going to be required this coming year. That's all.
Well, the tier one, and Jerry's, you know, obviously Jerry's correct. And Woodman Hills might have been tier one for many, many years. Paintbrush Hills has not been a tier one. So we've had the option of turning down locates from 811. But come January 1st, all special districts are required to be a tier one. Therefore, you can no longer turn down locates.
Okay.
So, and that's probably why Jerry's going to a contractor. That makes a lot of sense. Paintbrush Hills is just a lot smaller. We're a little smaller, so we're still doing it ourselves.
Thank you.
Can I make a further comment? If I
Yes,
may?
you can.
In the same section that we've been talking about in the statute, in section C, it says, no action to fix or increase fees, rates, tolls, penalties, or charges may be invalidated on the grounds that a person does not receive the notice required by the section if the district acted in good faith in providing the notice. Good faith is presumed if the district provided the notice in one or more of the ways listed, which I have read before. So if you made a mistake, but you acted in good faith, then it's still okay.
Thank you, Ted.
Fair enough. We're going to continue to work on this budget. I know it's back at the committee right now, so we will be having another meeting to actually approve or whatnot. And Jerry will notify Paintbrush once we have a drawn down. I think the 2.5 was on the high end of, but I think our CPI evaluation and everything else that we went through is lower than that. So trust me, Robert, we're trying to do no rate increases. We don't want to raise the rates on our community, and I don't want my rate going up any more than it has to be right now. I mean, I would rather be able to reduce rates. Unfortunately, we're in I think everybody can agree the economic bind that everybody's in right now, and everybody's feeling the strain. and which is this budget is taking a little bit longer than normal because this one is, we are scrutinizing this thing every way but right now to try to minimize any increase anywhere in there or not do any. So unfortunately, we have obligations that require increases as far as our bonds and things where we have to maintain a certain amount of revenue every year in those different areas. And I'm sure you're well aware of that.
And Troy, with that said, you know, it's also the point for the budget committee and the district that, you know, we still have to function as a business as well. So we don't want the rate increases any more than anyone else does. But one of the reasons going over the water issues that are coming up here soon is if we don't budget for the future and then trying to run numbers on a COVID year where revenue's been all over the place, it's really, really hard to plan. So I think due diligence on the board for spending some extra time trying to narrow down the numbers and get closer to where we need to be to make it beneficial for the community is pretty important right now. So, you know, that's for everybody, including Paintbrush Hills. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I think myself and I believe your board president, at least I think is Miss Bonilla still your board president over there?
Correct.
We've actually met on this specific topic back in 2018 and went through this same thing and had this same discussion about how you guys feel your rates should be and how they shouldn't be. And we went through this, we've highlighted this IGA and we've talked about that. So I'm pretty sure if right there is our legal counsel and he's been our general counsel since we took effect. So if there's an avenue there that you guys are wanting to explore or even to look at the IGA, that's something that you guys would need to present to your board or your legal counsel through our legal counsel and work on that. But there are certain stipulations in this IGA where, and I understand where you're coming from on your piece there, but there are also stipulations in there that the admin fees and things like that you guys felt that didn't apply. That was prior to 2011. And it's actually a stipulation in there that those could be collected after 2011. And I think we've beat that up already. So, but you guys have a right to not like anything that we decide, and we'll do our best to not have any rate increases, and we'll work our best on the budget. But we can only operate on the time frame that we can operate on, and unfortunately, everything is like in slow motion this year when it comes to getting things done, whether it's with local county government and state government. And ours is no different. Everything's kind of dragging on. Everybody wants to get out of 2020 and get on to 2021. But I do appreciate your comments. I have the notes here. I'm pretty sure our budget committee representatives are on here and they've taken notes as well. And we will address those concerns as well as I think we've already addressed actually most of them. When the final budget comes back to the full board for review and consideration. So I hope that answers your question. That's the best I can do here tonight in this forum.
You did mention that you wanted me to email my concerns because I said I had other concerns.
Yes.
You want me to send them to you or send them to Jerry or send them to somebody else?
Send them through from district manager to general manager, and then Jerry get those compiled and let's get them to the budget. If they're all pertaining to the budget, right, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then let's get those to the budget committee, Neil, Stacy, and you guys can take those up in your committee before the budget comes back to the full board. So just so the public's aware, the reason we do the budget committee the way we do, we have 2 board members that are sitting on the budget committee with our 3 department heads for the district. They're working and preparing the budget and then sending it to the board as a whole. When it comes to the board of directors as a whole, that gives us the benefit of having 3 or a majority of the board to be able to review the final budget presented out of committee, which in turn hopefully gives us a unbiased, objective look at that budget for the year, to be able to make any comments or any late minute changes or anything to that nature. And with that being said, that's how it was presented before, and we've sent it back and then had a study session as full board to review it. And then they're making tweaks as a committee, and then they'll send it back to the full board for review. So I know we only have a couple of folks on here, but there will be folks that tune in and watch this when it's posted. So I just want to make sure that we put that explanation out there so that we can have make sure that everybody knows that this is a year-long process. Whoa, what was that? The 2022 budget process will start as soon as this one's done. Basically, we'll start looking at numbers that come in at the end of the year and start working towards that next year's budget. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that, because sometimes folks think that we just throw this thing together and that it's pushed out there, and that's not the case at all. It is a very long and sometimes painful process. Anything else on the budget as far as for the hearing here tonight on the budget presented? We'll get those the comments that Robert made and Kelly's comment.
I can't hear you, Troy.
I was gonna say, did anybody else lose Troy?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Were there any written objections that came in since the last meeting on the budget?
No, there haven't been no written.
Okay. So then, if there's no further comments on as far as for budget hearing, we'll close the hearing. I don't think we need a motion for that. We can just close that portion of the meeting and that portion of the hearing. And we will wait for, does the committee have an idea of when we'd be looking at the revision or with all the changes that were being made to the budget?
Neil and I.
Go ahead, Stacy.
Neil and I are sitting down with Jerry and Rachel on November 2nd. Hopefully we'll be able to do our final changes during that meeting. And then we will get it out so that way we'd have to have a special meeting, or I guess a regular meeting, just at a new time the following week, because then you are butting up against Thanksgiving. So we meet Monday, November 2nd. It should go out to the board shortly after that. So that way the second week in November, we can meet to look at a budget that we can all agree on. Yes.
Okay, so you guys are meeting November 2nd. Let's hash out a time for the next meeting, so that we can put, as far as on that agenda, the final consideration of the 2021 budget. How much time do you guys need, Jerry, between November 2nd's meeting and hopefully getting a revised budget out of committee?
Well, I would say it depends on what we're able to accomplish on November 2nd.
Okay.
If we can, have a budget prepared by that date, then it would just be whatever we would be obligated to do as far as if there's any further posting or anything like that. But that would be Ted's purview.
So let's do this. Let's, because our actual next meeting for next month, I believe, falls right on Thanksgiving, the 26th. Let's move our November meeting to the 19th.
Maybe we can do a review with the new improved budget on the 12th as a study session.
Absolutely. We can work on the date whenever you guys can get all that figured out after the second, as far as the study session. That doesn't need as long of notice, but I want to make sure we at least have it scheduled for that next meeting to be on the 19th. And I know we don't normally have meetings in November and December, and I apologize for us, but this is pretty, I think, an important thing to work through here.
So on the 19th, could we classify it as a special meeting and it will only be for the 2021 budget?
We can.
So that way, I know that the staff normally doesn't meet in November and December, but it would be shorter because there wouldn't be financials and minutes and different reports and stuff like that. It would only be for the sole purpose of the 2021 budget.
Is that, I think that's fair.
And then do a tentative meeting for the 12th for study session.
Yeah, I'd be dependent. Let's work out a time on that because it would have to be in the evening if I'm going to attend a study session on that day. So.
Just so we've got enough time to review. I think we'll figure out things. I think it'll be pretty effective meeting on the second. So
let's we'll get with the district staff on this as far as a study session time that following week, 12th or 13th or somewhere in there. But let's make sure we have a hard date scheduled for that budget meeting or budget hearing or presentation to the board, whatever we're going to do with it on the 19th.
Troy, just so you know, I am out of town the 6th of November through the 20th.
Well, that's no fun.
Well, I know it'd be pushing it, even though I know the communication has been going back and forth between the budget committee. Sherry, will you have service while you're out of town, or should we?
I will actually be in Mexico.
Oh, don't even worry about it then.
and she's not taking any of us. That's terrible.
She is not taking a copy of the 2021 budget with her either. So.
Well, I mean, come on now.
I know.
No, Sherry's all in. She'd take it with her. I think she'd do that.
Okay.
So if the 19th is a problem, I mean, we could easily push this like in the first week of December. That wouldn't be a problem.
And still get it out by the 31st.
We have to have it to the state, I believe, by the end of January.
If we did that, then the date would probably fit in line with doing it on the 3rd of December. That'll put us in the first week. And
Hang on.
enough time.
No, the board needs to adopt it by December 31st.
Yes.
The January date is in relation to providing it to the state.
Providing it to the state.
Yeah, but internally it needs to be done by the 31st.
Deadline was October 15th to have a budget to the board, which we met that.
Yeah,
And
that's
now-
the first one. And the second is December 31st.
So we need to do this in October then, Ted?
No, December 31st is our next deadline. We need to adopt it in this year.
Right.
So we
Great.
could,
But your internal activity, the subcommittees and the budget committee and all that stuff, you're fine with all of that. I'm just saying the only real deadline you got, you met the October 15th deadline. The only other deadline you have is December 31st. The board.
So
can-
we're good for that first week of December. So that'll give us plenty of time to schedule a study session in there to go over it again, once we get it back to the board.
We could do a study session on the 24th. That's when everybody will be back in. I don't think anyone's out of town at that time. And then follow up with a special meeting on December 3rd for the budget to adopt it. And that should put us in enough timeline for Jerry to submit and Rachel to submit for the December 31st.
Okay.
So what are the new timelines?
Tentative 24th, which is a Tuesday. We can do it on the 23rd. That way Sherry's back in town. We can even do it on a Monday if that's easier for everyone. So the 23rd, we could make that study session. And then December 3rd, that would give us a little over a week for the board to review. We could do an adoption. If there's any changes that need to be done, that'll give us a week to for the committee to go back and forth with the district on any changes or any agreements, compromises, arm wrestling, sumo, right? Jerry's not smiling.
All right, let's we'll hammer out the dates. Let's plan on the on the district schedule as far as for the meeting on the budget itself for the board to vote on it. Will be on December 3rd. At 5:30. And then you guys are meeting on the 2nd. So when you come out of your committee meeting on the 2nd, let's get messages out to everybody on what you guys timeframes you need to polish work it all out to where we can meet to review it in a study session between the 2nd of November and the 3rd. That's a day over a month. So somewhere in there.
So that date's not set yet, correct?
Unless you guys are wanting to set that date right now. I'm only available in the evenings after 5, except for on Fridays.
I think after the 2nd, we'll have a better idea. Right, Stacy?
I don't want to press you guys into a date where everybody's scrambling to work everything out when you have a month to work with, and we're trying to, if we condense it into a week, putting an unreasonable constraint because I don't know what you're going to come out with on the 2nd of November.
Yeah, I think it'll be better to let's see where we come out on what we end up with on the 2nd. I know we've been emailing like crazy. Fridays work for me. They're normally not a day that I'm working. So maybe we could do it on a Friday, especially
just for clarification for the public. They've been emailing amongst 2 board members and the district staff. None.
Oh, yes. Clarification. It is just the budget committee.
Yes. I just want to make sure that that's clear. There's
Yes,
no
it's
big
just budget committee emailing back and forth.
Budget committee. So okay. So we're set on the 3rd of December to vote on the budget. You guys are having your committee meeting on November 2nd. And then you guys work out the details of when you want to have a meeting for full board review and a study session on sometime in between there. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay. All right, let's go to item 11.
Okay, the rate increase obviously will have to be decided after the budget is approved. However, I did have a proposal before the board to increase tap fees.
Yes.
And I have looked at tap fees, of course, in the neighboring communities, and we're kind of middle range on where our neighbors are at. It's interesting, of course, you go to the south, Whitefield, Security, things like that. Their tap fees are much different than ours, as well as if you go north into the Monument area, their tap fees are much higher. I think our tap fees, the way I've adjusted them, is fair. It provides, of course, a one-time source of revenue from each home being built in the district. So it amounted to I raised the rate $1,000 per for the water, $1,000 for sewer, and I added $100 onto the Parks and Rec fee. So Parks and Rec does get a portion of that tap fee.
Okay.
And then I took the percentage of the increase on residential. Basically, that's a residential tap fee, and I applied that same percentage to the larger taps, 1 inch, 1.5, 2 inch, and raised their tap fees the same percentage as the residential.
So I see the R's here, but do we have the comparison to the districts around us as far as what our tap fees are in comparison to them?
I can tell you we're just a little above what Meridian charges, but we are still considerably lower than Paintbrush Hills.
Okay. And as far as the tap fees go, are these a line item in our budget? The tap fees?
Certainly the tap fee is a line item, and also Parks and Rec might fall under other revenue, and I'm not exactly sure how it's delineated in for water and wastewater. Let me take a look.
Jerry, I just want to make sure while you're taking a look, I just want to make sure that if this is a line item in our budget's still under review right now for next year. I would rather see this be brought in as part of the budget for next year if it's part of the budget. I know it's just we're looking at a separate sheet here, but if it's an actual piece of the budget, I want to make sure we bring it in with the budget. And I know we have tap fees built in because I just seen them. We're kind of catching up from earlier in the year right now from September's financials. So, and you're muted, so.
Tap fees come under 42300 in the water budget. There's a line item. I'm sure there's the same thing in the wastewater. I mean, certainly this will increase revenue in those line items. However, it's not significant. It's $1,000, that per tap. Whatever we can expect for taps. Not exactly sure what we thought we'd see in tap fees or taps for the year 2021. I think it's probably around 50. So.
Okay.
But understand, this is part of our part of what we pay our bond with. So I think it's like I said, it's a one-time opportunity for new homes to pay their part for our new wastewater plant and improvements that we've made on our systems.
I understand that, but it's still a line item revenue in the budget. So at least in my opinion, unless somebody with more financial know-how than me would be part of our budget revenue as far as water and wastewater paying the bond back, I understand that. But what you're asking us to independently raise the tap fees on outside of the budget line item.
I think we discussed it, Jerry, that that particular line item, along with a couple of other line items, that's not guaranteed revenue, so it doesn't fit within the budget, does it?
It doesn't do what to the budget?
Doesn't fit in the budget. We're not guaranteeing that we're going to be saving X amount of dollars in tap fees because we can't predict how many homes are being built in the market. So I thought that we had discussed that wasn't a budget item because it's not a guarantee. We could have one.
Well, that's true. It's not like the rates that we charge where we're have a X number of ratepayers that we can count on getting revenue from. Tap fees are very variable. If the real estate market stays at the rate that it is right now, we'll see a nice portion of revenue coming from that. If housing falls off, we might fall short in that category. So yeah, it's very difficult.
Unfortunately, I don't think housing is going to fall off any. It doesn't look like there's any end in sight to that.
Having a house party.
Right. Okay. We have in front of us a in-district or out-of-district tap fee increase proposal from Jerry. The only way it can pass is with a resolution or a motion. I will entertain a motion, whether it's for or against.
With the research that's been done on the tap fees, I believe Jerry's done his homework. I move to approve the tap fee adjustment.
Okay, I have a motion on the table for approval of the tap fee adjustment for 2021.
I'll second.
And a second by John. With that motion and a second, we will, any further discussion?
Yeah, if it's appropriate, I'd like to ask a question.
Okay, I'll allow the question. Go ahead.
Okay, on any increase of fees, again, we go back to the 30-day notice and also a public hearing. And all you got to do is at this point, and I'm sure Ed could elaborate, is open your meeting to a public so everybody can again have inputs. But I'll go back to my original notice on the budget that obviously us continuing to building, we're paying tap fees to you guys also. And we would resist any increase in fees based on our ICA. Thank you.
Troy,
Go ahead.
may I make a suggestion? In order to obviate this issue entirely, without my having researched all the dates on the website, one possibility, since you're already planning to hold another meeting on the budget on December 3rd, would be simply to call that a budget hearing. And we put out the notice immediately after this. That gives us more than 30 days notice and answers this objection.
I would just like to say that my reading of the IGA with paintbrush is that they're really not going to be hit with a tap fee increase from us. The tap fees from paintbrush are set. One part of that IGA that I disapprove of, their tap fee to us is very low. Up to this point, we've been getting $2,000 per tap. That's extremely low. At any rate, that's the way I read the IGA. If there's anything else to be seen there, I'd take it up with Ted, and we'll take a look at that IGA and see what we can discover about how our tap fees affect Paintbrush Hills.
And Jerry, I would agree with you. That was my understanding also, but I didn't have that information with me, so that's why I made my objection. But based on what Jerry said, I'll withdraw that objection on the tap fee increase.
Thank you. I was going to read it to you. That's what I was looking for. I was just going to read it to you. So, yeah, I appreciate you hanging in there, Robert. Unfortunately, we'll continue to agree to disagree on some matters in the IG that write themselves over each other. So, which is why I guess there's an arbitration and mediation clause in that IGA. But staying out of the legality of things, now that thank you, Daniel, thank you, Robert, thank you, Jerry. There's a motion on the floor to approve the tap fee increase for 2021. There is a second on the floor, so I will open it up for a vote. Any further discussion on it? With no further discussion on it, all in favor of the tap fee increase for 2021, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, I was muted. I will vote yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
And Sherry, you were a nay? Opposed?
Correct.
Okay.
I feel like we should wait until the budget is out.
Okay. And we'll make sure that's noted. So the motion passes 4-1 for the tap fee increase for 2021. Okay. And going with that, now you know what the tap fees are going to be next year. And your projection, Jerry, was 50 new home builds. So that will give the budget committee a number to work with on that line item in their revised budget.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Okay, item 12 will be resolution for Bar Holdings inclusion. This is the corrected or amended resolution, my understanding.
Yes.
Okay. And that's resolution number 2020-10-22. Resolution turning outstanding. No, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Here's the right one. All right. It's resolution 2020-10-22-2. And this is whereas Bar Holdings LLC petition for inclusion of real property. They're 100% fee owner. Has everyone read this? This was posted in Ranchland News, July 23rd. And there are copies of the notice to the public attached as an exhibit in this resolution.
And I would just note that there is an inclusion agreement, which is the key piece.
Yes.
So Ted, is that what is being amended? Is the inclusion piece? Because you said this is an amended resolution?
Y'all passed a resolution last month, which I had some issues with. We have edited it, and that is the edited version.
Thank you.
It's the last step before we file a motion with the court to have the inclusion approved.
Okay.
We
All
do
right,
not
I will
yet.
entertain a motion for approval or disapproval of the resolution as written.
Motion to approve the resolution for the inclusion agreement.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion to approve by Neil and a second by Stacy. Any further discussion on the resolution?
Motion, excuse me, the motion is to approve the resolution, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, with no further discussion, I'll open it up. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And resolution. Okay, item 13. Resolution regarding delinquent accounts. This is the yearly, I'm going to need some legal expertise on this one. I've seen this one on the agenda and I have reviewed it, but I do have questions on as far as this resolution this year in reference to COVID guidelines and what we can send forward to the county. And I am not familiar enough with the current, other than the restrictions on masks, social distancing, group gatherings and things like that. But as far as delinquent accounts, I know evictions are still off the table through the end of the year. But as far as delinquent accounts, where have we run this down through COVID guidelines right now to make sure this is even within our purview this year right now?
I would just say seat of the pants is I have on another matter, a ban on collection proceedings. So your point is well taken. I can't answer you definitively at all right now, but it absolutely is an issue which should be investigated.
Jerry, does Rachel have has she reached out to county or even SDA as far as state guidelines? I haven't reviewed the governor's latest order as far as collections, but I do know there are several collections in different arenas around the state that are off the table right now until the end of the year.
And the one I was talking about is about collections.
Okay.
Let me go look for it.
Yeah, I would defer to Ted to make a opinion on this.
And is there a deadline to have this to the county?
Yes, there is. That's why we were doing it in this meeting.
Yeah, the headline, I got it. The headline on it is, you have the right to temporarily suspend this collection action if you are facing financial hardships due to the COVID-19 emergency. I would agree, Troy. I think we need to check with the county to hear the other side and get their reaction.
November 1st is the deadline.
What's it? What is it?
November 1st is the deadline for us to file.
Wow.
That may be the same deadline for the operation of this, but it is suspected that there's going to be, no, it says this suspension is effective until November 1 or February 1, 2021, if the state of Colorado extends the period of suspension, which is what I suspect will happen.
Now, my question is if we pass this and forward this to the county, then they would follow the COVID guidelines as far as for collection and things, correct? Ted?
I better say I don't know, because I don't know if they're going to say, since we're the ones seeking to collect, it's our obligation, or they're going to say they're the ones collecting, it's their obligation. I don't know the answer.
I do know that the city of Colorado Springs had begun to enforce their payment, their rules for non-payment. So I'm not exactly sure how they thought they were complying with the state, but it doesn't seem like if they're doing that we're out of line in applying it. I'm not sure that some of these delinquent accounts, it could be people that have left and are not going to pay the bill. Obviously, the bill stays with the property, and so the whoever pays the taxes on the property is going to be paying the water bill. So.
It would just seem prudent to check with Colorado Springs.
Hey, Troy, I've got a question on that as well.
Go ahead.
So in line with the community grants that the government or that state's offering for COVID, I know they're doing a second round for grants and offsets with anything that has to do with COVID. Does the delinquency accounts qualify inside of that for the grants for the state to pay?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, but we'd have to show that that what we're collecting was due to COVID. I don't know if it's incumbent on us to prove that or the homeowner to prove that. So it's kind of a messy area, I think.
Well, my other question on this is I'm looking at this account sheet here, and I it's clearly annotated on here. The 8 of these are Falcon. I'm guessing, is that Falcon Hills or Falcon Highlands? What's FH? Is that Falcon Hills? I'm assuming it's Falcon Hills, but I don't want to be wrong. And 10 of them are paintbrush.
Interesting. I'm not familiar enough. I'm sorry. That is Christina and I guess Rachel would have to answer that.
And I only ask that because, I mean, if we're talking about putting it to the county when these are just their sewer fees, right, for paintbrush?
Paintbrush only pays sewer to us. Actually, Falcon Highlands only pays sewer to us also.
Okay. But I thought we were collecting from the entity, those entities, or are we collecting from the homeowner?
We bill each homeowner.
Okay.
Falcon Highlands nor Paintbrush Hills is involved as the entity itself.
Okay. I would with my caveat that I mentioned, I would be inclined to because we are not going to meet November 1st unless we send it to the county, with the caveat that we need to address with the county because they're ultimately the ones going to have to answer the state. But I would be inclined to send it on to the county for their consideration, and that they could send it back. But I also want to make sure on Neil's point that this round of the second round of CARES Act, that, and I want to put it on this public record right here, that we are also looking at going back to March, April, May timeframe, where folks lost the ability to utilize our facilities, and we're still paying for them. And although we have to collect based on our obligations, we should be able to collect from the CARES Act to try to reimburse our community for and I would almost call it damages. They lost the ability to utilize something they pay for. That we also include that, look at a way to include those type of things in that request.
Do you want me to contact the county, or would you prefer to have Jerry or Rachel do that?
I would think we would get with Rachel on this, and let's, I want to make sure we have a legal finger on the pulse down there.
All right. She and I will work together.
That's only based on our most recent dealings with the county, with the water tank and stuff like that. I would rather have a legal pulse on that, or a thumb on that pulse. So,
all right, I'll work with Rachel.
And so my question to the board would be, and to you, Ted, is do we approve this resolution, sending it forward, and then with the caveat that you guys need to return and let us know what the county said on this?
Answer yes. You can pass it subject to.
It's nothing different than we pass every year. So in the basis of trying to apply normal operations and let you guys figure out the legalese on the back end there with the county. That would be my opinion. So I will, unless there's any other discussion from any board members. Okay, with that being said, I'll open it up for any motions on either approval or disapproval of the resolution number 2020-10-22. That's the resolution turning outstanding accounts over to El Paso County for collections via taxes.
I'll make a motion subject to.
Okay, for approval or disapproval, Stacy?
For approval.
Okay.
If this is part of the normal operation, then I think we should do that. But I think taking into account if you can use, it from the CARES Act, because people are out of work, people are struggling. And so having some compassion as a homeowner. So.
If we don't turn this over, I know you have Rachel, if we don't turn this over to the county and we miss the deadline, what happens?
Well, I would guess that we'd have to wait till next year to do it.
Can someone point me to the November 1st deadline, so I have something to look at?
I don't know where to point you, Ted, but we can get you that information tomorrow.
Okay, Rachel probably knows. I'll ask her.
So we're talking, this is a total of just over $9,200.
I'll second it.
To send it on with the caveat?
Yes.
Okay.
There's
All right,
no
so
reason to hold up. We just gotta take care of
say
it.
again?
So there's no reason to hold up. We need to take care of it and figure out what we can do. And then likewise, in light of the homeowners as well, so.
All right, I have a motion by Stacy to approve with the caveat on there that we check with the county and make sure that we can legally move forward with it. And a second by Neil. Any further discussion on it? Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Item 14, Park and Rec report. Jed, you've been waiting a long time.
Still awake. Here we go. Lots of different things going on here. I'll kind of go through them. I won't keep you guys too long. And then at the end, a few things to discuss or ask you guys to vote on. Maintenance, been doing a great job. We painted the sheds in the back, matched the building, helped with the basketball court. Lines are coming for those in the near future. We're supposed to be this week. They got backtracked. Replaced some of the boiler burners at the pool. Different signs they hung. So they've just been doing a great job. Just wanted to give them credit where it was due. I'll get back to RCE edition. Disc golf course, back 9 holes are almost completed. All the baskets are in. Tee signs are in. I believe 5 of the tee pads have been poured. Near future, we anticipate finishing off the tee pads. We are closing in on the end of our first disc golf league. We've had 10 people who paid to participate in that, and we've gotten good feedback from them. Good feedback on the design of the back 9 of the golf course. So that's been a huge success. Golf tournament over at Antlers Creek. That was Saturday, October 3rd. Proceeds, we made about $1,050 for Operation Underground Railroad, which I thought was first year, fantastic turnout, really good amount of money that we can send off to them. Feedback at the tournament was great. A lot of people look forward to next year doing it again, or some sort of flavor of that. So the golf tournament was a success. Sports, a lot of different things going on. We have our flag football, a lot of kids taking part in that. That's just started, and we've set it up where we're playing Meridian every week. So that's kind of a really cool relationship that we're starting to grow. Painting classes have been a success. Mommy and me, painting with a pro. We have a couple more coming up. We'd like to continue to do those, once a month for the community, give them something to do. Senior activities, bingo, bunko, have all taken off and really have been successful. Great turnout. It's a credit to Fran. I know she promotes the heck out of that. And I think we had upwards of 18 or so at that bingo, the first one, and we have another one coming up. Bunko, I believe we had 7 or 8. And I think we have 9 signed up for this Friday, tomorrow. So again, those have taken off and really good social event for our seniors. And we also have something new starting, fly swatter volleyball, and that's kind of for all ages, not just seniors, but that's something we're going to try in November also. Mary's running that for us. Fall festival, chili cook-off, I thought it was fantastic. Turnout, we had, we were estimating over 450 people showed up throughout that day. We had 300 pumpkins and every single one of those was gone. So we know we had at least 300 little ones there. So it was just fantastic. We had 15 vendors. They all had good things to say when we touched base with them afterwards. Petting zoo, climbing wall, bounce house. We kind of went all out for that one, and it was well worth it. Fantastic feedback from a lot of the community members who just kind of touched base with. So I know some of you guys were there, so hopefully you enjoyed it also. But the fall festival and chili cook-off really were a hit this year, I believe. Outdoor basketball court. The use is kind of through the roof at this point. Cement's completed. Like I said, the lines were supposed to be done earlier in the week. They had a possible COVID issue, so they kind of got backtracked with their jobs. So hopefully either I doubt tomorrow, but maybe next week. So that's the goal there. And so the basketball court has just been a huge addition to the community. Baking and cooking classes. We started the baking. We had 4 participants the first time. Really cute. Stopped by at the end, and the lady running the baking class really did a good job. We've reached out to a different lady to do cooking classes at CCW, and we have a bunch of people already signed up for that one. That's early November. I'm sorry, early December. So the kids cooking class, we're really excited about that. Also, another nice addition. Winter basketball camp, as well as winter basketball league. I think I left that off this sheet here. Those are scheduled for both December and January, and we're going to start promoting those. I believe Daniel and his crew are working on flyers for us, and we're excited to do that with Meridian again, and they're excited as well. So we're looking forward to that. Football camp, we just wrapped that up. Coach Billingsley from Falcon Middle School ran that for us. We had 20 kids take part in it. Really cool. The feedback was good. He had a blast. So he's hoping to do it again this coming summer. Nice thing that we offer for our youth there also. Jeremy and James have started our pool painting. We have, started, we're going to kind of whitewash the whole place to start. And then we have a gentleman, Bart Hanks, who I'm working with, who is working on a mural that will go around and kind of add a really neat flavor to our indoor pool. So I'm kind of excited to see what he comes up with for us. So we have some different ideas floating around there. Casino night, I know Ted mentioned that earlier, did reach out to the gaming commission. We got permission to do it. So we've been kind of throwing some ideas around and some poker, blackjack, roulette, and we've already started working on a silent auction. Actually, today was a really successful day. We got 9 donations from 9 different local businesses for different things for our silent auction. So it was a great first day, just kind of working on that. So we're excited about the casino night. That'll be in towards the end of January was our goal to kind of run that. Thanksgiving potluck, and Mary's running that. And then I believe she has a December event for senior classes also, just kind of another social gathering and kind of say, thank you to what they all do. I know there was a few things that I threw at you. They are up for discussion or review. One of them was the fee schedule. Just kind of threw that at you to, sorry, I'm looking through my papers here. Nothing really has changed. I just kind of added a whole bunch of different things on that second page of, the disc golf tournament and the sponsors and those types of things that were not on our original fee list. So I did throw that at you to take a look at. I also throw a rough draft, a first draft of the bylaws. I know we were asked to work on that a little bit. So we added a couple things in the sense of some wording, changing my bearings here real quick, changing the age as far as unattended by parents. We upped that just a little bit. And then we added a paragraph at the end regarding chain of command and that type of thing for you guys to kind of review and look through and obviously, give me some feedback as far as things you would like added or deleted from there or tweaked in any manner. So, and then my last thing back to RCE Edition. They are working on the engineering, the metal civil permits and things. I had actually reached out this morning, never got a response as far as where we were with that, but hopefully we get one in the near future. But I did ask for a proposal price quote on moving the parking lot. The parking lot as is, or the addition to the parking lot is proposed to take up most of that front lawn at RCE. So where those 4 or 5 big trees are, it's going to kind of go past there and take those and that whole area that we've used for the fall festival, for concerts, other things, is going to be gone under the initial proposal. So I did reach out to him just to kind of get a price quote of what it would look like or cost us if we moved those 100 parking spots to the back of the building, preserve that front for not just events, but future builds or things like that. So with that, I believe you all have that in front of you. And the proposal is, I believe it's $93,000. which is a decent chunk of money to say the least. There's pros and cons to everything, but I will kind of leave it at that and see what you guys think about that.
So Jed, I would think that parking lot would be about like towards the end of the project. So is there any time crunch on this change order?
Not 100% sure. I can find out from them tomorrow morning whether they need an answer right now or not. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I know usually, they'll have a time limit on, yeah, all price is good for 30 days, it says at the bottom. So obviously if we didn't make a decision on it right now, they'd have to redo the bid. But Daniel, I'm going to put you on the spot here since you're so well connected with the county and stuff. You know what, it's irritating. We're looking at doing this expansion at RCE. And of course, the county just has criteria. They say, yeah, this much square footage, this is how many parking places you need. And I would contest that we don't use nearly the parking that we have. And it could very well be that we're going to add all this parking and it will be unused. And do you think there's any chance that we could get an audience with someone at the county and possibly get a waiver on putting in all this parking? I'm just throwing it out there.
I have no idea whether a waiver is possible, but I'm sure that we could have an audience with somebody to talk about it. You make a very strong case, and I think if they're reasonable, they'll hear it.
It doesn't hurt to ask, right? All they can do is say no.
My only concern with waivers from the variances from the county is if we ever, as a district, decided to add another piece over there, that they would come calling on that variance or that waiver on the next piece. And all we would be doing is kicking the can down the road at that point. So, with that being said, I mean, I'll entertain any motions from the rest of the board, but I personally am not prepared to move forward or against right now on this. I'd need a lot more information from the county, how many spots are required by how much square footage that building is, and whether street parking on the side roads or anything like that would be an added benefit. But I would be reluctant to take away green space there for events, especially after looking at the turnout from like the Fall Festival in Chile. That's the most people. I've been here since 2009. That's the most people I've ever seen at one of our events out there by far. It was pretty impressive to see that many folks out there. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? When you drive into the driveway there of the parking lot, how much space is to the right? Is there any way that we could add more parking spaces on the right-hand side, or is that right up against somebody else's property right there? Maybe that would give us enough space to appease the county.
Not for what they're asking for. That space there would not accommodate. What are they looking at? It's either 70 or 100 more spots they're saying we need.
Almost double.
Oh,
Which is, I mean, but I guess if you look at the Fall Festival, how many folks were there and how
right.
much of the lot was taken and how many folks were parked along Meridian Ranch Boulevard. I mean, I
Yeah.
can see both sides of the coin here. I could see the demand from the county, and then I could also see, our side of saying, hey, we're, how often are we doing that?
Has anybody ever reassessed the parking spaces there? Like,
I just think there's more research needs to be done there before we move either
Okay.
way. That's my opinion. I'll open for any other discussion with the board or anybody else.
Jed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the area that Judith is referring to is for drainage. Is that correct?
oh, okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Jed, the original quote that was done for the rec center, that included the parking spaces already allotted in that, and this is an additional change above and beyond that?
So the initial price quote included I believe it's 100 parking spaces in that number. This would be, yes, an additional fee on top of everything to not do it in the front and move all those spots in the back. So yeah, you're looking at another 93,000 if you, as is, the same number of spaces.
Does that seem on par for you for 100 spaces on the back side of the building?
Well, I would get a better read on that because looking at this, Jed, I don't see, this looks like that there's a difference. If you look at the site plan dated 5/20/20 and the site plan dated 9/26/20, if you add those up and then you add up the difference between the two site plans, so if their cost was all inclusive in the 5/20/20 site plan, and then you look at the site plan for 9/26/20, I think they're wrong on their change order total here. Because the addition looks to me like to be about $13,000.
So I actually asked that exact question. Sorry,
So are there numbers that are supposed to be on this paper that aren't on this paper?
those are square feet. So, for example,
Per square foot, got it.
so the disturbed area, I'll just take line 1. What would be disturbed in our initial plan was 20,000 and change square feet. And the amount of space being disturbed, if we go to the back, is now 26,000 square feet. And they explain that in the sense of the initial plan, you can kind of add those spots and you just have one long middle drive-through. Whereas if you put the spots in the back, you have to have numerous drive-throughs between parking lanes. So that would account for your disturbed area, your excess area. So those numbers, it's funny, I asked the exact same question. I said, this comes out to 13,000 and change.
Sure, I was reading it right.
So that's square feet.
All right.
I can go back and ask them to reassess and kind of see if we can get a variance. Ask them if they can come up with a different plan for us, get some more information, maybe touch base
I
with
would
them.
just, at least me personally, I would be more inclined to, one, let's get in contact with somebody down there. Because, you know, as always, there are many variances in building codes that or don't require or waive. So
Well, our parking lot only has one entry in and one entry out already.
That's right.
So I don't know why it would require multiple entries in and out. You know, but of course they're the builder and we're not. So,
right.
You know, the code may have changed since then. I don't know. But just a thought.
That's my opinion, is we need to flesh this out a little more before I would be ready to do anything with it.
Sounds good.
Fee wise, is the fee schedule is in the bylaws, or is that I like the bylaws as you the couple of additions that you added here, but we also need to look at the appendix as far as the user agreement. Have that added on there. That way, that's a standard that's on there in the appendix, so it's with anybody. Any other board members have anything different on as far as the Hammers change order, as far as the fee schedule?
No.
Anything else? Was there anything that you were requesting a motion or any type of answer on this evening, Jed?
No, just wanted to present that Hammers numbers to you, and obviously you guys can chew on them a little bit, and I'll touch base with Daniel and see if we can get a hold of somebody and have a meeting and go from there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jed. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Everybody out there that had a piece of that fall festival and stuff, thank you very much. That was very well done, for fitting all that stuff in a parking lot like that, and having the steady flow of folks come through there. I heard nothing but good feedback from everybody.
Great.
It was awesome. It was very nice.
Rigged, but
It was awesome.
I think the kids had a good time.
They did.
The adults did too. It was a good event.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to item 15, water and wastewater report.
Right, the cleaning and inspecting our mains does continue. We do have a piece of equipment broken down, and that's why mains inspected hasn't increased. As a matter of fact, we're waiting for that to be repaired so we can finish up with Paintbrush Hills, who has us over there cleaning and inspecting their mains. As you know, pump 2 at Meridian Lift Station was down for some time being repaired. That's been put back together and is online. For the first time that I've been in Woodman Hills, we had a root problem. I would imagine I mean, it's been 12 years, so during that time, trees have grown. Roots into a sewer system is a real bane on the industry. Causes all kinds of problems. So this is just kind of a heads up that we may be getting into having that problem. Plus, when you have such dry weather for so long, it's amazing what tree roots will seek out as far as water goes. But nonetheless, the guys inspected all the grease traps, which we do twice a year, making sure that the restaurants are keeping up on that. They have a structure that is designed to capture all the grease that comes out of the restaurant, so that it stays in that structure and can be cleaned rather than ending up in our sewer mains and causing blockages. So it's an important function. Wastewater treatment plant, test results are in compliance, and they are well within limits. We're really knocking it out of the park there. They do a very good job. That JDS designed that plant, and it's doing an excellent job. Everything is working well there. All systems are operational. We did have JDS come in. They assessed the plant to determine if the rating of the plant is accurate or if it could be increased. We're hoping that they could actually put a little higher rating on that plant. Of course, that won't affect anything. It'll be something that the state will have to propose to the state, see if they will allow us to increase rating of the plant. And of course, that allows us to serve more customers if we can get the rating of that plant increased. And of course, we're looking at increasing the plant rating without having to do any modifications. So no dollar outlay to get an increase in rating. Let's see. So we've been waiting to get cell 3 cleaned out. That's the last thing that's going to have to be done since we abandoned those lagoons. We cleaned cell 4 last year. Cell 3 has been on the books all year. Veris is the company that comes in and does that for us. They're supposed to be here this week to start that work. Water system, also working very well. All systems are operational. We have had a few brown water complaints. We're kind of isolated to a certain neighborhood. We couldn't understand what the problem was, why it was causing this. Now, brown water is caused by iron that's in our water and it precipitates out in the mains. And it just typically would stay there until we flush it out, which we do annually. But we don't do that in the summertime. Obviously, there's huge water demand. We don't want to put more strain on our system by flushing mains at that time. However, when we have a brown water complaint, we investigate it, and I have to flush hydrants to clear that water up. Which staff does, very easily. Just takes time. But the biggest thing is why this is happening. And they did catch someone taking water out of a hydrant that could have easily been the reason why this has been happening. Of course, we have no idea how often they've done that. Our SCADA system, while very helpful, typically when people take water out of a hydrant, it's for such a short duration, it really doesn't show up on our SCADA system. But I would ask any resident that if they see someone hooked into a fire hydrant, that they contact us, and because a lot of times the guys aren't really stealing water. They just don't realize that the hydrant they're hooking onto, they don't realize who it belongs to. But it certainly can cause us trouble. Obviously, too, our water is perfectly safe. When people have a discolored water, that's just what it is. It's aesthetics. The water is discolored, but it's still completely safe. There's no danger to anyone. Of course, our water demand has dropped off precipitously because of the change in weather, which we're very grateful for. The guys did a great job this year, keeping everything going and keeping everybody in water. We didn't have any trouble meeting the demand. So hats off to the water crew for that. Our West Water project continues. Unfortunately, the time that the county cost us in the summer is catching up to us now. We simply needed one more week of warm temperatures in order to complete the tank. We were hoping to get it painted before the cold weather came in, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen. We needed 24 hours of above 40 degrees. I look forward to in the weather forecast, and at the end of the 10-day forecast, we were looking at a 35-degree low. So, there's always a glimmer of hope that we will have that 40-degree temperature for 24 hours in order to get that tank painted. Paint is on site. Actually, just got moved into one of our buildings to keep it from freezing. Yeah, if we get that little get a week of decent weather, we can still accomplish it. But if not, we'll have to wait till April, May in order to get the tank painted and finished up. However, we will be filling that tank by the end of the year, or by actually probably start at the end of November, if everything goes according to plan. So that tank will start going online certainly before the end of the year. So bentgrass is ongoing. We have sold taps, I believe, at least a dozen taps over there so far. Made our bank account look much better. Falcon Marketplace construction is continuing. We we had a contractor cause a break in an irrigation system. Our crew was able to come in and get it shut down, even though it was not our responsibility. Other than we're losing water at a pretty good rate, but our crew came in and was able to shut the water off for that. It was a good job done by our crew. Of course, it didn't happen until 4:30. All the guys had gone home, had to be called back. That's typical. So again, we're doing work in Paintbrush Hills. As soon as our CCTV unit is repaired, we'll finish that up and get them finalized. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Jerry?
Just a comment, that tank, Jerry had the opportunity to show us, that tank as it's getting built. That's really, really super impressive. So looking forward to the presentation that we see on that with that finished out work when it's being done. So nicely done.
Well, I'm glad that some of you had an opportunity to see it, because it's not something that everyone gets to observe. And yeah, it is quite a remarkable project. And their system of building a tank is really pretty amazing. And the finished structure is so good looking. I'd like to have it front and center right in the middle of our district so everyone can admire it. But instead it's stuck up in the boondocks, so anyway, thanks.
It looks like a sports stadium, especially next to that little tiny tank next to it.
You could hold a rock concert in the middle of that thing. That thing's awesome. It's what is that, Jerry? It's 3 million gallons.
It's 3 million gallons of storage. Yes, sir. And we'll be replacing a 2 million gallon tank up in the Meridian Ranch area. You're right, that does look like a stadium. And unfortunately, by the time they got the interior cleaned out, there was a real small window, like about 30 minutes, that a person had a chance to stick their head in and look at the vast empty space inside of that tank, because it's all freestanding. There's no support structure inside of it. So it would have been something to see. Danny got pictures of it, but he was the only one that was on site at the time that you actually got to look inside of it and see that. So we'll have pictures of it to post and for everyone who would like to look at it. I identify with John McGinn. I could talk about this kind of stuff ad nauseum. So, and I always love to show pictures of it. I don't know how much interest there is, but to me, it's
there's a lot of interest from me, just not tonight. We're 3.5 hours in.
I don't have them tonight. We'll get a PowerPoint set up and make it available.
And have Daniel posted on the website, and I think that would be pretty impressive. I'd like to know as a homeowner what I spent my money on, because I think it's a pretty important piece. So,
absolutely.
Jerry took me there on our tour, and it was just fantastic. I couldn't get over the banding process. It was just so fascinating. And again, Jerry, thank you for the playing tour guide.
Hey, were we billed for that tour?
What?
Were we billed for that tour?
Yeah, I billed Ted for it.
All right.
Yeah, that's right.
Just wanted to make sure he didn't bill us.
No, I didn't. What was a 6-hour day, I think. They even bought me lunch.
Not too often we can say we get 6 free hours out of an attorney.
Careful now. I resemble that remark.
Did I say that's all I had? That's all I had.
Daniel, do you have anything?
I've got some lawyer jokes, but it's been a long meeting already.
Oh, no, that's too easy. No comment, no public comment tonight? Okay. Item 17, other business. Any other business tonight?
No.
Crickets.
Might be past my bedtime.
It is past my bedtime for sure. Okay, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment right after I say thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. I know it was a long meeting. And I look forward to getting through this budget process and getting some of this other stuff going into the new year. Any board members have any comments before we motion for adjournment?
Good meeting. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
You got
it.
John Martin's second.
And a second from Neil.
Second
Thank
it.
you. Huh? With no discussion, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend, everybody. Stay warm. Motion carried. We are adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you, guys.